Chapter 736. In front of the Wanatian Imperial Palace. Li Xiaogong and the bearded man boarded the carriage. Yoko Ono signaled the coachman to speed up the carriage while she rode a horse and followed behind Li Xiaogong and the others. At the same time, dozens of black shadows rushed out from the bushes outside the palace gate and carefully followed behind the carriage. The undercurrent was turbulent. The power hidden in the deepest part of Fainio capital finally began to surge. All the forces began to appear. In the carriage, Li Xiaogong, who had been resting with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes without warning. He felt that something was wrong, mainly because it was too quiet outside. It was so quiet that only the sound of the carriage wheels rubbing against the ground could be heard. When things reach an extreme, they will move in the opposite direction. There must be something wrong. Li Xiaogong, who had experienced many battles, first felt that he was ambushed. However, when he opened the curtains and looked outside, he was surrounded by wide and open street. There was no way for an ambush in this kind of terrain. Moreover, this place was close to the Wanatian Imperial Palace. Unless it was the Wanatian Queen's order, who would dare to touch him here? All the facts proved that he was overthinking things. There was no ambush within a radius of 100 meters, and no one would dare to ambush him in this place. However, Li Xiaogong did not let down his guard. This was because in his many years of battle experience, this faintly discernible sense of danger had pulled him back from the brink of death countless times. Although this feeling had been wrong many times, when it came to matters of life and death, he could not afford to be careless. Therefore, at this moment, Li Xiaogong had already picked up the sword that was leaning against the carriage wall. Then, he closed his eyes and began to use his keen perception to sense the hidden danger around him. "Hey! Gentlemen, please make way! Make way, ah! This is the night incense I just collected." At this moment, a handcart came in front of the carriage. There were wooden buckets on the cart, and the stench could be smelled from afar. The man pulling the cart shouted loudly as he pulled the cart over. "Baka! Night incense! Get out of here, wretch!" The guards around the horse carriage couldn't help but scold him. In China, the ancient latrines did not have a sewer system or an automatic flushing system. They used a wooden bucket to hold feces, also known as a toilet bowl, which needed to be emptied after it was filled. Therefore, there would be people who would go to each house in the middle of the night to collect the feces in the toilets of each house. Pouring night fragrance referred to the dumping of feces. At this time, the Wanatian was very similar to the Great Tang in that they also had the job of selling night incense. Moreover, other than the patrolling soldiers and the night watchmen, the only people who dared to wander around outside at this hour were the night incense sellers. "Hey, hey, hey! Please forgive me! Please forgive me!" The man hurriedly bowed to the officer. It was unknown whether it was intentional or not, but the moment he bowed, the handcart carrying the night fragrance tilted towards the carriage. The wooden barrel on the handcart crashed and fell in front of Li Xiaogong's carriage. "Blurg! Baka! What are you doing? Do you know who is sitting in the carriage? Baka! Blurg!" Yoko Ono pinched her nose and rode to the side of the carriage. She roared at the night incense seller. Looking at the puddles of yellow and white substance on the ground, Yoko Ono could not help but feel nauseous. She hurriedly ran to the side, squatted down, and vomited to her heart's content. Just as Yoko Ono squatted down and the other Japanese soldiers covered their nostrils and bent down, a cold light tore through the night and suddenly appeared in the world. Almost in an instant it reaped dozens of lives. Following that, a Japanese sword seemed to have fallen from the sky and directly stabbed into the carriage from outside the carriage window. "Baka! Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Someone attacked the county king of Tang Empire." Yoko Ono was lucky enough to escape a calamity. But even so, a large piece of his scalp was scraped off by the assassin's sword. At this moment, his entire head was covered in blood. It was extremely terrifying, as if he was a demon that just escaped from hell. After realizing the assassin's target, Yoko Ono was scared out of his wits. If something happened to Li Xiaogong in front of him, not only would he lose his life, his entire family would be implicated. Furthermore, it was very likely that he would be sent to the Tang Empire as a sacrifice for the Tang Emperor to vent his anger. After understanding the serious consequences, Yoko Ono shouted for help as he picked up the other fallen swords on the ground and slashed at the assassin. Of course, he was very scared. After all, he was good at literature and not fighting martial arts. But even if he was scared, Yoko Ono still raised his sword. This was because he wanted to defend the honor of the Ono family. At this moment, he felt that even if he died in a battle, it would be worth it. Inside the carriage, when Li Xiaogong heard the sound of the sword piercing into flesh, he was already on full alert. At this moment, 2/3 of the sword had already entered the carriage, and Li Xiaogong's neck was less than 2 inches away from the sword. The crisis at that time could be seen from this. "Ha ha! How dare you! This king has been waiting for you for a long time." Li Xiaogong was not afraid at all. After all, he was a general who had experienced hundreds of battles. He laughed loudly and then pulled out the long sword beside him. The sword chi caused the carriage to become unstable. Then, Li Xiaogong shouted loudly and the sealed carriage suddenly broke apart. Li Xiaogong was like a god. He stood at the bottom of the carriage. The aura and strength of a Grandmaster Peak expert was completely revealed at this moment. Grandmaster Peak? How is this possible? The black-robed assassin was stunned when he felt the violent true energy on Li Xiaogong. He mumbled softly. In his opinion, as a duke, Li Xiaogong must have lived like a prince. Even if he knew martial arts, he would not be that good. At most, he would be around the Qi transformation realm. Even if he had entered the Grandmaster realm, he would have a way to deal with him. But at this moment, the black-robed assassin realized that he was wrong. In fact, he was very wrong because he realized that Li Xiaogong was actually a martial Dao expert who was above him. Clang! After Li Xiaogong saw the black-robed assassin's figure clearly, he raised his sword and slashed at the black-robed assassin without hesitation. "Ha ha! I didn't expect there to be someone so ignorant. Today is a good day for me to exercise my muscles." At the same time, in another carriage, the bearded man hugged his long sword and laughed loudly. Then, he also pulled out his long sword and joined the battle. Another Grandmaster Peak? No, this person is half a step to Grandmaster. After some speculation, the black-robed assassin suddenly felt a chill in his heart. He had to think of a way to escape. Otherwise, he would definitely die here if the battle continued. Chapter 737. Bam! 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 The 3 martial arts masters, who represented the pinnacle of martial arts in the world, had already fought for dozens of rounds on this street. The onlookers with average eyesight could not see the situation of Li Xiaogong, the bearded man, and the black-robed assassin clearly. Of course, the palace guards brought by Yoko Ono could not intervene in a battle of this level. They could only watch from the side. At the same time, the black figures who had been following Li Xiaogong's carriage were hiding outside and secretly observing the situation on the battlefield. Not only is the Commandery Prince of Tang an expert himself, but the man he brought along is even more terrifying. Currently, we don't need to intervene. We only need to observe the situation and wait for a good opportunity. Among the group of black figures, a voice full of energy spoke in a low voice. "Yes, boss is right. I wonder who sent this black-robed assassin. His martial arts skills are so high. His strength can be ranked in the top 10 in Japan, right? Haha. I don't even need to think to know that he must have been sent by Suo-e. But why did he only send one person over?" The previous leader paused for a while and replied, "Under normal circumstances, with this assassin's martial arts skills, he could have done it perfectly. However, No one would have thought that the commandery prince of Tang Dynasty and his man's martial arts skills would be so terrifying. However, based on my understanding of Suoi, he will definitely have a backup plan later. On the battlefield, the black-robed assassin was sent flying for more than 10 steps by the bearded man's powerful stab. After stabilizing himself, he spat out a mouthful of blood and felt slightly better. Li Xiaogong and the bearded man, 2 experts, chased after him with their swords. The black-robed assassin sighed in his heart. Then, without thinking, he immediately flew into the distance. Want to leave? You'll have to ask the sword in my hand if it agrees. The bearded man sneered and used the long sword in his hand as a hidden weapon, stabbing toward the black-robed assassin's back. It was fast, accurate, and ruthless. The distance of several hundred feet was covered in an instant. The black-robed assassin felt a strong wind behind him and hurriedly turned his body to dodge. However, he couldn't dodge in time because this attack was thrown by the half-step Grandmaster-level bearded man with all his strength. With a pew sound, the bearded man's sword shot at the black-robed assassin's back finally pierced through the assassin's right shoulder blade. Ugh! The black-robed assassin let out a muffled groan, sounding extremely pained. How could Li Xiaogong and the bearded man let go of such an opportunity to capture the enemy alive? The 2 of them used their qinggong and approached the heavily injured black-robed assassin. Suddenly, a series of footsteps came from the east side of the street. Then, a group of black-clothed masked warriors rushed towards Li Xiaogong. There were about 50 of them. When they got close to Li Xiaogong, they all drew their swords. Obviously, they didn't come with good intentions. Yoko Ono, what do you mean? Could it be that your queen wants me to stay in Neon? Li Xiaogong looked at Yoko Ono, whose head was covered in blood, and asked calmly. Yoko Ono's face was sullen as she hurriedly said, Your Highness, this is definitely not Her Majesty's intention. Her Majesty is absolutely clear to you and the Tang Empire. Please understand. Li Xiaogong's face darkened as he pointed at the group of black-clothed warriors who were only 10 steps away from them. He said angrily, Then who are they? Neon two-faced people, I will remember this. One day, I will make you suffer the consequences of your own actions. Yoko Ono hurriedly said, Your Highness, if Her Majesty really had ill intentions towards you, she would have taken action when you were in the palace. Why wait until now? Your Highness, you might not know this, but the Neon Imperial Court is currently not united, so these people might be. In order to clear his name, this fellow didn't hesitate to expose his family's dirty linen. He even dared to say things like, the Neon Imperial Court is currently not united. Kill. Just as the 2 of them were talking, the black-clothed warriors from the east had already surrounded them. Without saying anything, they directly drew their swords and slashed. At this time, Li Xiaogong didn't have the time to care about the black-clothed assassin's life or death. In the face of more than 50 well-trained and uniformed warriors, even if he tried his best, he wasn't confident of winning. Fortunately, there was still the bearded man beside him. The 2 of them picked up their weapons and took the initiative to fight. The black-clothed assassin, who was severely injured earlier, couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief when he saw this situation. Then, he prepared to take the opportunity to slip away. Li Xiaogong saw this and was anxious, but he didn't have a way to satisfy both sides. In a corner not far away, Su Wei said with a gloomy face, What a piece of trash! I thought he would be very powerful, but in the end, he couldn't even withstand a single blow. In the end, you still have to rely on me to clean up the mess for you. If it weren't for the fact that you still have some use, I would definitely kill you today. And this county king of Tang, you must also die tonight. Bang bang bang. Just as Li Xiaogong was in a dilemma and didn't know who to deal with first, a series of footsteps came from the west behind them. Then, he saw a group of guards in black walking towards them. Your Highness, I have been ordered to help you. I hope you won't refuse. The leading guard bowed slightly to Li Xiaogong. After listening to the translation, Li Xiaogong nodded and thought to himself, "At least I came in time." Then, he flew towards the black-clothed assassin from before. "You want to leave so soon? Didn't you want to kill me? I'm right in front of you now. Come on. Kill me." Li Xiaogong said calmly as he looked at the bloodied assassin in front of him with his hands behind his back. The sword on the black-clothed assassin's shoulder blade had already been pulled out. It was hard to imagine what kind of pain he had to endure when he pulled out the sword. Of course, the black-clothed assassin didn't understand a single punctuation of what Li Xiaogong had just said. "The furthest distance in the world, not life and death, but I'm standing right in front of you. You don't know what I'm talking about. Gurgle, 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 gurgle. Kill me if you want, cut me if you want." The black-clothed assassin gritted his teeth and endured the pain as he spoke. "I won't kill you, but I want you to live." Li Xiaogong narrowed his eyes. He definitely didn't have a good impression of people who wanted to kill him. However, the black-clothed assassin was different. Li Xiaogong still wanted to get some information about the mastermind behind this assassination from him. Su Wuxia, who was in the corner, saw that the advantage in the field had disappeared in an instant. He couldn't help but curse, "Bastard, these people must have been sent by Big Brother Shan Bei. This damn person is going against me again. I must get rid of him." Chapter 738. Bring these people back to the barracks for me. The battle didn't last for long. Although the overall strength of the 50-plus people that Su Wei sent was slightly higher than the people sent by Big Brother King on the mountain back, the other side had the dragon-bearded guest, a great expert with abnormal strength. Not to mention the 50 experts that Su Wei sent. Even if he sent 100 experts, it would still be useless. As for Li Xiaogong's side, he had already cut the tendons of the black-robed assassin and ordered Yoko Ono. He didn't even bring his guards to the palace, so he could only order Yoko Ono. He couldn't order the bearded guest, right? "Ah, Your Highness, please hand these assassins over to His Majesty. His Majesty will definitely give you a satisfactory explanation." Yoko Ono bowed and said pitifully. Li Xiaogong wiped the bloodstained sword, then lightly glanced at Yoko Ono and said, "This matter might even be related to your queen. How can this king hand them over to the palace? If you don't want to die, then do as this king says." "Your Highness." At this moment, a shout came from the corner of the street. Immediately after, the mountain-back's eldest brother rode a horse and rushed over with a group of guards. "Your Highness, His Majesty knew that you were attacked in the city and was deeply shocked. His Majesty sent me to express his apologies and condolences. He also asked me to investigate the culprit at all costs. Your Highness, please hand these assassins over to me. I guarantee with my head that I will definitely find the culprit." The mountain-back Big Brother King jumped off his warhorse and then cupped his fists towards Li Xiaogong with a sincere expression. Li Xiaogong said expressionlessly, "Impossible. These people's identities are unknown. Furthermore, you and the Nation's queen might be related to them. Before I figure it out, I will definitely not hand these people over. The more than 10,000 soldiers outside the city will also not agree to hand these people over to you." The mountain-back's eldest brother's expression froze. He understood the meaning behind Li Xiaogong's words. It was impossible for him to take these people away today. Otherwise, what awaited the Nation would be an all-out war with the Tang Empire. He couldn't bear the responsibility. "Your Highness, these assassins definitely have nothing to do with me or His Majesty. You shouldn't suspect us." However, seeing that Li Xiaogong was not moved at all, he said, "How about this, Your Highness, you leave a few alive, and I will interrogate them overnight. As for the rest of the assassins, you can take them away and deal with them as you wish. If we investigate together, it will be faster than if you investigate alone, don't you think so?" Li Xiaogong thought about it. It was indeed inappropriate for the imperial court's fleet to stay in Japan for long, so he nodded and said, Okay. Then Benwang will believe you once more. A total of 51 assassins came tonight. 28 of them were hacked to death and 15 committed suicide by poison. There are only 8 left. Other than the one under my feet, you can choose any 2 of them. Hurry up. The big brother king glanced at the black-robed assassin at Li Xiaogong's feet. He helplessly cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, Your Highness." A moment later, Li Xiaogong and the bearded man led 6 assassins out of the city, while the mountain-back elder brother led the remaining 2 assassins back to the palace. It looked like the lights of the palace tonight would be lit until tomorrow. The next day, at Yanwang College, it was just dawn, and the wake-up bell had already rung. The students who were immersed in their dreams had no choice but to get up even if they didn't want to. Do I have to get up so early? I'm so sleepy. Li Tai rolled over and stuck out his fat butt as he grumbled unwillingly. Although the bed in the student dormitory was a hard bed, Li Tai now felt that this hard bed was much more comfortable than the high bed and soft pillows in his prince's residence. If possible, he wanted to lie on it and sleep like this forever. I also feel so king sleepy today. Ching Chumo sat up, rubbed his face twice, and then muttered, *ck. It's all your fault. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been punished to stand so late last night. Li Tai lifted the quilt angrily and sat up to complain. Gugu, who knew that as soon as he sat down, his stomach would immediately protest. *ck. I'm so hungry. I still have to run later. Oh my God, what should I do? Why can't I have breakfast before running? The academy system is too unreasonable. For the past 2 days, the little fatty hadn't eaten any meat. Those vegetables and whatnot weren't enough to satisfy his hunger at all. In addition, he had been punished to stand for so long last night and used up so much of his physical strength. It would be strange if he wasn't hungry in the morning. Chinke, it's not good to exercise after eating. Let's get up quickly and wash up. Otherwise, we'll be punished again if we're late. Li Chengqian, who was sleeping on the upper bunk, leaned on the bed railing and said, I'll get up now. 121, 121, 1234, 1234. Yanwang College was located at the peak of the Cloud Mountain. There were no peddlers or pawns who woke up early, nor were there noisy pedestrians or merchants. In the early morning, there were only the neat and loud slogans of the students running here. Compared to the messy team at the beginning, they're starting to look more like it now. Li Zishuan had been waking up early recently. Firstly, he often came to the academy to check on the situation. Secondly, he had been waking up early to practice martial arts recently. He had been practicing the Lonely Wind swordsmanship that Dugu Xian had taught him last time. Because he didn't deliberately pursue progress, he had only practiced to the 3rd level until now. There were a total of 9 levels, and Dugu Xian had already reached the 7th level. Moreover, he found that this swordsmanship was similar to many other swordsmanship. The further one progressed, the harder it was to practice. Not only did it require a deep understanding of martial arts, but it also required some personal understanding. The two complemented each other, and only then could success come naturally. This was also the reason why Li Zishuan wasn't in a hurry to improve. More haste, less speed. As a Taoist disciple, of course he understood the principle of letting nature take its course. I heard that Jijia will be here in the afternoon, and tomorrow is the day off. It seems that these students have been having a hard time recently. Qin Xiong stood beside Li Zishuan and said with a smile. Li Zishuan was stunned. Cheng Yaojin had said that she would come to the academy to be a temporary instructor when she had time. It had been so long, and if Qin Xiong hadn't suddenly mentioned it today, he would have forgotten. Thinking about Cheng Yaojin's usual attitude, Li Zishuan couldn't help but laugh. Ha ha! Last night, these little rascals were full of energy and didn't sleep in the middle of the night. This means that the amount of training is still too little. Uncle Cheng is here to give them a little challenge. Qin Xiong twirled his beard and smiled. Xiao Xian, you have to watch from the side. Don't let Ji Jie cause any trouble. Li Zixuan quickly waved his hand and said, Uncle Qin, it's better for you to watch over them. I still have some other things to do these 2 days, so I'll leave them to you guys. Qin Xiong was speechless in the face of this lazy guy. Chapter 739. Huff, huff, huff. Ouch. Every time I run, I feel like I've lost half my life. When will this kind of hard life end? In the cafeteria, Li Tai was still panting heavily. He couldn't help but say this when he thought of the hardships he suffered while running, as well as the feeling of suffocation. Qinke, you're much stronger today than you were yesterday. Today, you ran the entire race on your own. Maybe in a few days, running 5 laps around the field will be as easy as blowing off dust for you. Li Chengqian smiled. Qing Chumo curled his lips and mocked. Chengqian, don't be delusional. I'm afraid we'll never be able to wait for this day. Huff huff. After saying that, Qing Chumo took a bite of the pancake and slurped 2 mouthfuls of porridge. He was simply elated. F***ck. Qing Chumo, you bastard. Your mouth is really King mean. Li Tai originally didn't want to become the kind of athlete that Qing Chumo spoke of. However, when he heard what Qing Chumo said, he suddenly became unhappy. Qing Chumo said indifferently, What mean by mean? I'm just telling the truth. Qinke, look, you've already cultivated to the nascent soul stage now. How can it be easy to run 5 laps? Nascent soul stage? What nascent soul stage? Li Tai was a little confused. He had read A Record of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality. Of course, he knew what the nascent soul stage was. However, what did this thing have to do with him? There, look. Haven't you cultivated to the nascent soul stage? It's like you have a child in your stomach. Qing Chumo swallowed the food in his mouth, pointed at Li Tai's bulging belly with his chopsticks, and said seriously. Cough cough. Cough cough. When Sun Zifen heard Qing Chumo's explanation of the nascent soul stage, he immediately spat out the rice in his mouth. After coughing for a while, Sun Zifen didn't notice Li Tai's murderous gaze. Ah. So this is only the nascent soul stage. What a joke. It's so funny. Green Sparrow, you're actually so powerful? You've already cultivated to the nascent soul stage, and I've only just reached the foundation establishment stage. Cough cough. I was joking. It has nothing to do with me. It was Qing Chumo who said it. As Sun Zifen spoke, he felt the surrounding air become colder. He looked up and immediately saw Li Tai's red eyes, so he quickly woke up from his excitement and lowered his head to continue eating. Qing Chumo, just you wait. Don't let me have anything on you, or I'll kill you. Li Tai glared at Qing Chumo bitterly, and then turned his grief into appetite and ate heartily. Late in the morning, on the playground of Yanhuang College, the students were still sweating profusely. They were practicing the straight steps and walking in formation. The chanting of slogans came one after another, and correspondingly, the heat on the playground also came in waves. The scorching sun baked not only the ground, but also the students on the ground. The students felt as if they were in a furnace. What's worse was that under such difficult conditions, they still had to do all kinds of tricky movements. It was simply terrible. The heat of the summer is really strong. It's estimated that it will be hot for a few more days. I have to prepare some ice cubes for the college. Otherwise, many students will get heat stroke. Li Zixuan narrowed his eyes as he watched the students train at the side of the playground. However, this was what he thought in his heart. Everyone knew that mung bean soup was a good summer drink. It was already available in the Tang Dynasty, but no one would be so extravagant as to add crushed ice to it. Hey! Why aren't you doing your military training? What are you muttering about here? Suddenly, a familiar voice came from behind. Li Zixuan turned around and saw that it was none other than Qing Yaojin. So it's Uncle Cheng. Why are you here so early? Shouldn't you still be in the morning court? Li Zishuan was surprised. I, old Qing, am here. There isn't anything important in the court today. It's just a bunch of civil officials bickering. This old man asked for leave from His Majesty, saying that I'm not feeling well. His Majesty allowed this old man to come over. Qing Yaojin explained proudly. Li Zishuan was speechless. He thought to himself that the old man was really mischievous. He actually lied to Li Er about such a small matter. Fortunately, Li Er was an enlightened ruler who treated meritorious officials well. If it was the later dynasty, if old Qing still dared to play like this, he would definitely be killed by the emperor for the crime of deceiving the emperor. Hey, why don't you go and train? In the past, when you were doing business, you liked to be a hands-off shopkeeper. Now that you've opened the college, do you still want to be a hands-off Yamacho? Qing Yaojin repeated his previous question. Li Zishuan pouted and said, Who said that I'm not training? Look at those 30-odd people over there. I'm the one training them. Excluding those who were instructors, there were still 34 people in his personal guards who were idle. These people were completely trained by Li Zishuan. Under normal circumstances, their training volume would be 5 times that of the student. If the students ran 5 laps, they would have to run 25 laps. If the students stood in military posture for half an hour, they would have to stand in military posture for more than 2 hours. Qing Yaojin took a closer look and couldn't help but say, Isn't this just running? Why are you training them to run? Are you expecting them to be deserters in the future? It was originally a joke that Qing Yaojin thought of, but he didn't expect Li Zishuan to be so serious. Uncle Qing, there are many times that you can only make a comeback if you're alive. There's nothing wrong with letting them run faster than others. Besides, who said that we only run when we're running for our lives? When we're chasing the enemy, we'll naturally be able to catch up if we're faster than the enemy. Hey, you're full of nonsense. If Her Majesty hears about this, she'll give you a good beating. Anyway, I, old Qing, will never let my subordinates be deserters. Qing Yaojin waved his hand and teased. Then he looked at the students who were training under the scorching sun and said, Second Brother Qin must be tired these 2 days. Let him go home and rest. Next, I'll take over the military training of the students in the academy. Li Zishuan nodded and said, Okay. You should let Uncle Qin rest for 2 days. Then I'll leave the military training of the academy to Uncle Qing for the next 2 days. Haha. No problem, you brat, you can rest assured. With me helping you train them, I'll definitely help you train a group of obedient students. Qing Yaojin agreed readily, as if he was afraid that Li Zishuan wouldn't let him be the instructor if he was late. After hanging out with Qing Chumo for a long time, Li Zishuan obviously knew what kind of character the father and son of the Qing family were. He knew clearly in his heart, but in order to cooperate with old Qing, he said, Well, since that's the case, I'll gather everyone and announce that Uncle Qing will be the temporary chief instructor. Chapter 740. Li Zishuan wanted to increase the amount of training for the students last night, but Qing Yaojin came today. He had to admit that this old man came at the right time. After calling the students to gather under the rostrum, Li Zishuan announced that Qing Yaojin would be the temporary chief instructor of the college. His authority was the same as Qin Qiong's, but Qing Yaojin was only a part-time instructor. He would only be there when he was free, while Qin Qiong was there every day. Nearly a third of the students in Yanhuang College came from Chang or the farms around Chang'an. They had heard of Qing Yaojin, the devil incarnate. Therefore, when Li Zishuan announced the appointment, there was a wave of cries. Clearly, many students knew that their days of hardship were coming. When Qing Yaojin saw this, he revealed a proud smile on his face, which made him look particularly scary. Okay, each class can rest for 15 minutes. All instructors, go to the college's conference room for a meeting. I will assign training tasks to each class. There was no such thing as an inauguration speech for Qing Yaojin. The old man folded his hands behind his back, smiled, and instructed the students to disperse. Damn it! Qing Chumo, King screwed me over last night, and today you called your father over to screw me over. Are you done? On the field, Li Tai stood on top of Qing Chumo's head and said angrily. Qing Chumo was now lying on the grass. Qingke, you're wrong. I didn't want my father to come, but he wanted to come himself. What can I do? Speaking of this, Qing Chumo was still depressed. He knew better than anyone else about his father's temperament. Once old Qing arrived, little Qing would be done for. This was because his father had personally said that he would take advantage of the military training period to raise his martial arts realm to the Qi transformation stage. The Qi transformation realm. It was not that Qing Chumo had never thought about it, but he thought that he would be satisfied if he could reach the Qi transformation realm by the age of 30. Now it seemed that he would be the most miserable one in the academy in the following days. TSK. Who are you trying to fool? With your father here, your life will definitely be better, but the rest of us will be miserable. Li Tai, who did not know the inside story, curled his lips and sat down beside Qing Chumo. Although Qin Xiong was strict, he was very methodical in his actions. However, Qing Yaojin was different. To put it nicely, this old man had a big heart, was strict with his troops, and was not afraid of anything. To put it bluntly, this old man was heartless and had no sense of severity. When he trained people, it was as if he was playing with their lives. Cough cough, of course, he was playing with the lives of others. Qingke, you'll know when the time comes. Qing Chumo was too lazy to explain. He felt like he had nothing left to live for. Little Xian, can you help me prepare a batch of 6 feet tall wooden barrels? Qing Yaojin asked on the way to the conference room. Li Zixuan looked at him strangely and asked curiously, 6 feet tall? Uncle Qing, what do you need such a big wooden barrel for? 6 feet was close to 2 meters. Li Zixuan could not figure out what this old man was up to. Qing Yaojin laughed and said softly, of course, it's for the students who don't listen to me. If anyone doesn't listen to me, I won't beat them with the military rod or make them run. I'll just put them in the barrel and close the lid for 3 days. I'll leave 2 small holes for them to breathe. I'll get someone to deliver food to them. Li Zixuan did not expect Qing Yaojin to be so playful. He could not help but ask, Isn't this just a small black room? Qing Yaojin smacked his lips and thought for a while before saying, small black room? That's a good name. Whoever doesn't listen to me in the future will be locked in a small black room. Otherwise, if I beat them with the military rod, these soft and tender students will definitely not be able to take it. You really have a lot of ideas. These students will have to thank you properly in the future. Li Zixuan was speechless. He thought to himself, you were the one who came up with this idea. Why are you putting the blame on me? Alright. I'll send someone to get the craftsman in the workshop to make a batch of large wooden barrels. Although old Cheng's idea was a little harmful, it was still a good idea. After all, the military rod was not suitable for the academy. However, where did old Cheng get such a rotten idea? In fact, this kind of punishment method of locking people in small black rooms had been circulating in the army for a long time. The specific origin was unknown. During the period of Emperor Gaozong of the Tang Dynasty, Wu Meinyang introduced this method into the palace to deal with disobedient women in the palace. At that time, Li Ji's original empress, Empress Wang, had suffered such a punishment. Oh, by the way, Xiao Xian, I have another idea. Listen to it. Qing Yaojin seemed to have suddenly thought of something and hurriedly shouted. Li Zixuan's heart skipped a beat. He had another idea? This old demon was eating people. He really began to mourn for these students in his heart. Uncle Cheng, please speak first. Ahem. This is just a preliminary idea of mine. Xiao Xian, you're smart. Help me perfect it. Cheng Yaojin coughed dryly and began to introduce his detailed plan. I want to select the students in the academy who have a foundation in martial art. In addition to the usual military training with the other students, they also need to undergo additional weapons training. After all, they have a good foundation. Li Zishuan's eyebrows twitched and he asked, weapons training? If they get hurt, it won't be a small matter. He did not object to Cheng Yaojin training the students who knew martial arts alone, but if they fought with real weapons, it was still very easy to get hurt. After all, weapons had no eyes. Cheng Yaojin waved his hand indifferently and said, What's a small injury to a martial artist? Xiao Xian, don't think too highly of these students. It's not good for them. Hearing old Cheng's words, Li Zishuan came to a realization. This was ancient times. In this era, students were usually willing to endure any hardship in order to learn knowledge and skills. They were not like the students in the modern era. If the teacher said a few harsh words, the children's parents would come to the school and fight the teacher to the death. Indeed, students should not be too delicate. Thinking of this, Li Zishuan nodded and said, Yes, that's good. I agree with your plan. But in terms of weapons, I'll have to rely on Uncle Cheng to think of a way. Cheng Yaojin laughed and said, This is a small matter. Zuowei happens to have a batch of weapons that can't be cut and are about to be eliminated. I'll send someone to get some later. I'm looking for you because I have another problem. I'd like you to help me perfect it. Please speak. The old demon wanted to eat people. Li Zishuan thought for a while and decided to cooperate. Chapter 741. I'm thinking about how to pick out the students with Kung Fu background. If they know that I am going to give extra training to the students with Kung Fu background, they will definitely hide their Kung Fu. Cheng Yaojin's logic was quite clear. He had actually thought of this. This old man is really meticulous. About this? Li Zishuan rolled his eyes and an idea came to his mind. He whispered, Uncle Cheng, I have an idea. Cheng Yaojin's eyes lit up and said, Oh? What is it? Hurry up and tell this old man about it. It's like this, Uncle Cheng, in a while. 15 minutes later, all the instructors came out of the meeting room and returned to the field. All the students received a strange order almost at the same time. In order to teach students according to their aptitude, the Academy has decided to select students with Kung Fu background and give them special treatment. They will be able to eat meat for every meal. Now, students with Kung Fu background can take the initiative to register and enjoy the special treatment after passing the assessment. When the students of each class heard this order, they all burst into an uproar. What? Those with Kung Fu background can eat meat for every meal? This is not fair. This is not fair. We are going to look for the Yamacho. Yes. This is not fair. Why can those with Kung Fu have meat for every meal while we can only eat vegetables? Among the students of the Academy, only a small number of them knew Kung Fu. After all, they were scholars and there were not many people like Li Zishuan who knew both Kung Fu and Kung Fu at the same time. This is an order from the Yamacho. Those who are not convinced can go to the Yamacho's office after school. Now listen to me obediently. With Li Zishuan supporting them from behind, the instructors were very confident. They all shouted at the students in their classes. As for Class 1, it was even simpler and more violent. What? Who is not convinced? Come out if you are not convinced. I will reason with you. Cheng Yaojin put his hands behind his back and smiled maliciously. The students in Class 1 shrunk their neck. Only idiots would be willing to stand out and fight with Cheng Yaojin. Ha! Good. Since no one had any objections, then from now on, those who had a foundation in Kung Fu should take the initiative to step forward and accept the award. I'm just testing you. If you pass, you'll be able to eat meat for every meal every day. Seeing that no one objected, Cheng Yaojin said, Hey! Me. Chief Instructor, Do you think I can do it? Hearing that he could have meat for every meal, Sun Zifen immediately became excited. He had been eating vegetables for the past 2 days. Sun Zifen felt that even his feces had turned green. He wanted to eat meat. You are Sun Fujia's son, right? You stinking brat, you already know how to visit brothels at the age of 6. Do you think this old man doesn't know martial arts? If there's another person like him, I'll have to punish him for lying about military intelligence. Qing Yaojin narrowed his eyes and glared at Sun Zifen. Ha! Sun Zifen, so you started visiting brothels when you were 6. Amazing, amazing. I'm ashamed of my inferiority. Qing Yaojin's words caused the students to burst into laughter. Sun Zifen's face turned red, and he did not dare to speak anymore. How is it? What I said just now was right? Chonyo, your good days are here. Isn't this rule specially prepared for you? It's a pity that we can only eat vegetables for every meal. Li Tai nudged Qing Chumo with his elbow and said angrily. Qing Chumo rolled his eyes and said, What? Qing Ke, you want to go? If you want to go, I'll exchange places with you. Li Tai said angrily, I've never practiced kung fu before. How can I go? I think you're purposely trying to piss me off. Sigh, there's no way to communicate. Qing Chumo shook his head. If it was someone else who announced this order, he would definitely believe that it was a good thing. But now, no matter how stupid Qing Chumo was, he knew that there was a conspiracy behind this. A conspiracy that would kill him without paying for it. In the short time that the two of them were whispering to each other, 4 or 5 students had already walked out from Class 1. At least 30 students from the other classes also stood out. Qing Chumo, you little bastard, why aren't you standing out? You brat, do you think I don't know if you have any kung fu foundation? Qing Yaojin's angry roar came from the front of the line. This roar completely shattered Qing Chumo's hopes and dreams. Oh, I'm coming! Qing Chumo walked out unwillingly under the strange gazes of the surrounding students. Qing Yaojin glared at his son fiercely but did not say anything else. Here, this is your identification. When you go to the cafeteria to eat, take this out. You can get meat dishes. You're not allowed to borrow it, or it will be confiscated forever. Qing Yaojin gave each of them a small token and explained. Li Tai and Sun Zifen, the 2 gluttons behind, were about to drool. All right, return to the team. Let's begin today's training. Before the training, this old man will say a few words to you. There are only 2 sentences, so listen to me clearly. Qing Yaojin waved his hand and attracted everyone's attention. Then, he raised a finger and said, First, listen to this old man and you can eat meat. Second, if you don't listen to this old man will let you suffer the harshest punishment in the world. The harshest punishment in the world? The students sucked in a breath of cold air. As expected of Brother Qing, he was ruthless and didn't say much. Old Qing was indeed much less talkative than Qin Xiong, but every word was bloody and ruthless. It made people's hearts turn cold when they heard it. Instructor, what's the harshest punishment in the world? Wang Meng scratched his head and asked. Qing Yaojin narrowed his eyes and said meaningfully, You want to know? You'll know when you give it a try. No. Wang Meng hurriedly waved his hand. Even if he was beaten to death, he wouldn't dare to be the first person to eat crabs. Someone would die. All right. These 2 days, the main training is running and formation change. Within 2 days, you must be neat and tidy. Run 5 laps first. If your steps are not in sync, we'll continue to run. After Qing Yaojin said that, he looked around with his eyes. Then, without giving the students any time to react, he directly shouted, Attention! Look to the right. Look forward. Turn right. Start running. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Bang, 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 bang. Throughout the entire process, the students were like machines. Whatever instructions Qing Yaojin gave, they would respond accordingly. Of course, in order to avoid running another 5 laps, Everyone was concentrating to avoid making a mistake. Li Tai was especially serious. Right now, he could only run 5 laps at most. If he were to be punished, he wouldn't be able to run anymore even if he was beaten to death. Chapter 742. With Cheng Yaojin here, Qin Xiong was no longer in charge of the training. Li Zixuan had some matters to attend to, so Pang Feiji and the rest of the guards' training was handed over to Qin Xiong. Li Zixuan himself slipped away. Young master, you're here. Young master, come to my house for lunch. I just hunted a pheasant yesterday. The meat is very fresh. Young master, come to my house. I hunted 2 rabbits yesterday. Come to my house. I have fish. Tisk, fish is nothing. I bought 2 caddies of wild boar meat in Chang'an yesterday. Young master, why don't you try it? That's right. After Li Zixuan left the academy, he went straight to the Han family village. As soon as he entered the village, he was greeted by a group of villagers. It was less than an hour before noon, so the villagers warmly invited Li Zixuan to their houses for lunch. Haha. I appreciate everyone's good intentions. Today, I came to the manor to look for my father-in-law for some matters. I'll be having lunch there. Looking at the enthusiastic villagers, Li Zixuan smiled and rejected them one by one. All right. Disperse. With me, Han Tianhu, here, Xiao Xian will have nothing to eat in our village. Disperse. I appreciate everyone's good intentions. Unknowingly, Han Tianhu had also arrived at the entrance of the village. He smiled and persuaded the villagers around Li Zixuan. Since Han Lijing is here, let's disperse. We'll invite young master another day. Young master, you must do us the honor. My wife's cooking is very delicious. That's right. Young master, you must do us the honor. Seeing that Han Tianhu had arrived, the villagers knew that they would not be able to invite Li Zixuan today. They said a few words and dispersed. Li Zixuan agreed to their requests one by one. They were all a group of lovely and honest working people. Young master, thank you so much for promoting my family. Everyone else left, except for Hu Hanyun. He bowed deeply to Li Zixuan and thanked him. Uncle Hu, what are you talking about? As expected, he was able to enter the academy because of his own ability. I didn't help him at all. Don't stand on ceremony. Li Zixuan quickly pulled Hu Hanyun up and said with a smile. Han Tianhu couldn't help but laugh. Little Xian, you don't know this, but Hu has really become the pride of the village. When the other villagers heard that the Hu family had a student from Yanhuang College, they were all envious. A few people have already come looking for me, asking me to quickly set up a school in the village. Now that the villagers are living better lives, they want their children to be able to study. Li Zixuan said happily, that's a good thing. Haha. It's time for our village to have a school for beginners. Taishan, hurry up and get it done. If you have any difficulties, you can find me at any time. I can also send a group of engineers from the academy to you. Han Tianhu waved his hands and said, no need. The original school in the village can still be used after some slight renovations. There's no need to make it so luxurious. Hu Hanyun also said, yes, young master. We're used to living a hard life. We can't be fussy about that. To us villagers, it's already a blessing for our children to have a place to study. All right then. Li Zixuan saw that and didn't insist. He let them be. Hanyun, do you want to have a drink with little Xian in the afternoon? After talking about the school in the village, Hanli looked at Hu Hanyun and invited him. Hey, how can I do that? Hu Hanyun was quite tempted, but he refused. What's there to be embarrassed about? Let's go. The sun is really hot. Han Tianhu said casually. Now that his son and daughter were no longer by his side, he was usually the only one at home. He was a proper, lonely old man. It was rare for Li Zixuan to visit him, so he was happy from the bottom of his heart to be able to gather a table for a feast. Hu Hanyun could see that Han Tianhu was sincerely inviting him and wasn't just being polite. He said, Okay. You guys go first. I'll call my wife to help cook. Han Tianhu smiled and said, Heh? That's great. Otherwise, my cooking skills won't be good. At noon, the Han family held a big banquet. Lu Yue also put in a lot of effort in cooking this meal. One had to know that Li Zixuan was not only the young master of the village, but also her son's Yamacho. She also wanted to do something to repay him. Come, little Xian, Han Yun, let's drink. Han Tianhu raised a cup of wine and laughed heartily. Okay. Ha. To Li Zheng, to young master. The three of them raised their heads and drank the wine in their cup. Li Zixuan smiled and said, Father-in-law, I heard from Yushi that the village's harvest this year wasn't good. Recently, I've been busy with the academy. Today, I happened to have some time, so I came personally to see how the villagers are doing. Han Tianhu put down his cup and nodded solemnly. This year's harvest is indeed not good. Our village is better. First, little Xian, you've reduced the rent. Second, the villagers have other sources of income other than grain, such as the mountain fruit wine previously and eggs now. So, even if there's a decrease in grain production, it won't affect the villagers. However, the other villages aren't so lucky. I think many poor people will starve to death in winter. The good atmosphere suddenly became a little gloomy after being said like that. Hu Hanyun comforted him and said, That can't be helped. How can young master take care of the world's citizens alone? This is something His Majesty should worry about. Besides, didn't the imperial court issue a tax reduction decree previously? The situation should be better. Han Tianhu knew the inside story of the people. He shook his head and didn't explain further. He only sighed and poured himself a cup of wine. Li Zixuan said, His Majesty is a rare wise ruler. The lives of the world's citizens will definitely get better and better. Father-in-law, you don't have to be discouraged. Forget it. Let's not talk about this anymore. Eat. Little Xian, eat more. Han Tianhu waved his hand and pointed at the dishes on the plate. Li Zixuan quickly agreed. Then, he realized that the dishes for lunch were a little strange. Scrambled eggs with cucumber, egg and tofu soup, fried eggs, stewed eggs, onions, which should be called onions at this time, scrambled eggs. The dishes on the table were most likely related to eggs. Li Zixuan wanted to ask, Father-in-law, can't you sell your eggs? Father-in-law, just make some vegetables. Why did you make so many eggs? Shouldn't you leave them for iron egg to nourish the body? Some words could be said in his heart, but he couldn't say it out loud. Li Zixuan hesitated for a moment, then pointed at the dishes on the plate and smiled bitterly at Han Tianhu. Chapter 743. Ahem. This. Han Tianhu's face turned red as he coughed dryly. Xiao Xian, don't worry about it. Eggs are the most abundant thing in the farmstead. Iron Egg has been eating a lot of eggs recently. Li Zixuan paused for a moment before asking, Father-in-law, the chickens in the village have grown up and started laying eggs, right? Generally speaking, it would only take 3 to 7 months for a hen to mature and lay eggs. Counting the days, the hundreds of thousands of chicks should have started laying eggs by now. That's right. They started laying eggs a month ago. Now, every household can get hundreds of eggs every day. Han Tianhu nodded. Li Zixuan thought for a moment before asking curiously, That's a good thing. The farmers can sell their eggs in Chang'an City. That way they can subsidize their families. Generating income for his own farmstead was something Li Zixuan had always wanted to do. Hu Hanyun interrupted, Young master, you don't know. Previously, eggs were selling quite well. At its most expensive, it could be sold for 6 copper coins each. But now, it's not easy to sell them for 2 copper coins each. The farmers are selling them for 1 copper coin each. Even so, There are still many that haven't been sold. Seeing these things spoil, everyone's heart aches. We couldn't bear to eat them before, but now we can only eat them like vegetables. In this era, eggs were worth money to the farmers. They would sell them in the market. But now, with the Han family farmstead situation, they had to eat them even if they didn't want to. Because the eggs were stored for too long, the bacteria would invade the shell and cause it to spoil. Eggs stored at temperatures higher than 25 degrees had a higher chance of spoilage. In the summer, they could be stored at normal temperatures for 7 to 10 days. Below 15 degrees, they could be stored for 30 days. In this era, there were no refrigerators, so the eggs in the farmstead could only be stored for 7 days. Any longer and they would spoil. The price actually dropped so much? Li Zishuan opened his mouth in surprise. He had a lot of things to do all day long, so he definitely didn't have the time to understand these trivial matters of daily necessities. Therefore, he didn't know anything about the huge changes in egg prices in the past few months. Yes, not only our village, but the neighboring plum village as well. Han Tianhu sighed. Sigh. How about this? Father-in-law, you can send a batch of eggs to the academy first. Anyway, the canteen over there consumes a lot of eggs every day. It's the same as buying other people's eggs. When the time comes, the canteen will buy them from you at the price of 2 copper coins per egg. Li Zishuan thought of an emergency plan and said, How can that be? Now, all the eggs in Chang'an City are sold at the price of 1.5 copper coins. Aren't you suffering a loss, Xiaoxian? Han Tianhu said anxiously. He knew that his son-in-law was rich, but he shouldn't spend it recklessly. Li Zishuan waved his hand and said, It won't be a loss, it won't be a loss. The academy's cafeteria is not free. What loss is there? It's just that there are only 600 students in the academy at the moment. At most, we can consume 1,000 eggs a day. Hu Hanyun smiled and said, Young master, it's already good enough to sell 1,000 eggs a day. We will think of other ways. We can't let young master worry about everything, right? Li Zishuan pursed his lips and didn't say anything. He knew that the farmers couldn't think of any good ideas. After all, they had a lot of foresight. After thinking for a long time, Li Zishuan suddenly smiled excitedly and said, Ha! I have an idea. How about this? I'll send someone to get Steward Wang to arrange the purchase of eggs today. All the eggs in the farm can be sold to Steward Wang at 2 copper coins per egg. Everyone is willing to sell, if they want to. Han Tianhu was shocked and said, Xiaoxian, you can't do that. Where are you going to sell so many eggs at once? The markets around Chang'an City are all flooded with eggs. If you buy so many eggs, they will all go bad in your hands. That's right, young master. You've taken care of the farmers enough. We can't let you lose any more money. Don't say that I won't agree. Everyone in the farm would rather have all the eggs in their house go bad than agree to this. Hu Hanyun also agreed at this moment. Li Zishuan smiled slightly and said, Ha, father-in-law, Uncle Hu, you've misunderstood my intentions. I've never said that I would lose money to help the farmers. Previously, you all thought that I would lose money when I bought the mountain fruit. In the end, I made a lot of money because of the sale of the gentle village. It's the same now. Since I dared to buy so many eggs, I definitely have a better way to preserve them. When the time comes, I will definitely only make money and not lose money. Hu Hanyun was a little suspicious and said, Young master, are you serious? I, old Hu, have traveled extensively and can be considered quite knowledgeable. How come I've never heard of such a magical method? Li Zishuan smiled slightly and said, Just because you haven't heard of it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Uncle Hu, don't worry. You also know that I never do things that I'm not sure of. When the time comes and I make a lot of money from these eggs, the villagers won't say that I, Li Zishuan, purposely lowered the price of the eggs to make money. Hu Hanyun glared and said loudly, Let's see who dares. The chickens in our farmstead were all given to us by young master for free. These eggs were originally considered extra wealth. We should be thankful to be able to sell them for money. Young master, earning money through eggs is also your own ability. If you don't buy them, we won't be able to sell our eggs and won't be able to make a single copper coin. When the time comes, if anyone is not grateful and is jealous, I, Old Hu, will be the first to fight them to the death and see if their hearts are black. Han Tianhu also stroked his beard and said, Old Hu is right. Little Xian, if you really have a way to preserve the eggs, that's also your own ability. If you rely on your own ability to earn money, no one can say anything. Moreover, we definitely don't have such a heartless and unscrupulous person in our farm who can't differentiate between right and wrong. Actually, Li Zishuan mentioned this mainly because he had seen too many similar news in his previous life. For example, someone helped the village find a good market for their farm product. The price was also higher than the price of the nearby farmer's market. Then, this person made a lot of money and built a big house in the village. In the end, many villagers said that this person was not kind and that he purposely lowered the price when he bought the farm products to make money. These people had completely forgotten that their own village gained extra income because of this person. And that's fine. The Heavenly King's housekeeper will come tomorrow. Father-in-law, inform the people in our farm and the people in the neighboring plum village in advance. Hearing Old Hu's words, Li Zishuan also felt that he was overthinking. After all, the farmers in this era were still very simple and honest. Okay. In the afternoon, I'll go door to door and tell them to prepare the eggs tomorrow. Come, let's drink and eat. The dishes are getting cold. Chapter 744. After lunch, Li Zishuan chatted with his father-in-law under the shade of a tree in the courtyard for a while before leaving. There were still things waiting for him at the academy. He had recently discovered a strange thing. As a shut-in, he could no longer stay at home. If there was nothing going on, he would not be able to stay at home for long periods of time. This problem had troubled him for a while, but he could not figure it out no matter how hard he tried. He blamed it on the fact that there were no electronic products in this era, causing him to be unable to stay at home. Electronics and chemical engineering were the most important things for the academy in the future. His ultimate goal was to establish the basic science of Tang Dynasty. Li Zishuan would be satisfied if he could play games on the little tyrant learning machine while he was still alive. As a successful transmigrator, Li Zishuan had money and power in this world. It might seem comfortable, but from a certain point of view, he could not even be compared to an ordinary person in the modern world. He did not even have a phone to play with. He could only blame himself for not bringing a phone with him when he transmigrated here. Hey! There's a huge grasshopper here. Haha. You guys are finished. Wow. Such a huge grasshopper? I don't want to compete with you anymore. I'm going back to the chicken farm to pick up eggs. When he reached the entrance of the village, Li Zishuan saw Danyo and Ernyo playing with a group of children from the same village in the fields. From what they were talking about, it seemed like they were fighting grasshoppers. He smiled and walked over. The lifespan of a grasshopper was around 2 to 3 months. They could be divided into summer grasshoppers and autumn grasshoppers. The eggs of grasshoppers that survived the winter hatched into nymphs in April and May. They were called summer grasshoppers. The next generation of summer grasshoppers was called autumn grasshoppers. When autumn grasshoppers laid eggs, they were called winter grasshoppers. It was already the end of September. This group of naughty children must be playing with autumn grasshoppers. Danyo, Ernyo, what are you guys doing? The few children were stunned. They quickly greeted Li Zishuan respectfully. Greetings, young master. Then, Danyo said in a muffled voice, Young master, we were competing to see who could catch the biggest grasshopper. In the end, De Zhuang was shameless. Only now did Li Zishuan notice that there was a thick bamboo tube hanging from Danyo's waist. He could faintly hear a dong-dong-dong sound coming from inside. Brat, why did you catch such a big basket of grasshoppers? Even if it was a competition with De Zhuang, there was no need to catch so many. It's such a hot day, aren't you afraid that something bad will happen to you? Hee hee. Scratching his head, Daniel awkwardly laughed. Young master, we're not afraid of the heat. This grasshopper is for the chickens in my chicken farm to eat. My mother said that when a chicken is full, it can lay more eggs. If it lays more eggs, we can sell them for money. If we sell them for money, we can have new clothes to wear during the new year. Li Zishuan couldn't help but laugh when he saw Daniel thinking hard while counting his fingers. Ha! Daniel, why don't you let your chickens out of the chicken farm to eat the grasshopper? Li Zishuan was too tall, so Daniel could only raise his head and answer, Young master, that won't do. If we let the chickens out after they finish eating the grasshopper, they'll definitely go to the vegetable farm. Looks like there aren't many grasshoppers this year. Li Zishuan understood this information from Daniel's words. Grasshopper eggs, eh? There's something in here. Li Zishuan suddenly had an idea. He patted Daniel's shoulder and said, Daniel, don't let the chickens eat the grasshopper in the future. Tell the other children in the farmstead that if they catch grasshopper, they can send it to the Yanhuang College cafeteria. 1 catty of grasshopper can be exchanged for 3 copper coins. Ah, young master, you're telling the truth? Daniel widened his eyes in disbelief. 3 copper coins for 1 catty of grasshopper. To these children who had nothing to do all day, this was a way to make a fortune. As for the chickens in the chicken farm, even if they didn't eat the grasshopper, they would still lay eggs if they ate other insects, right? This was equivalent to earning twice the amount of money. No wonder Daniel wasn't excited. The other children all looked at Li Zishuan expectantly, hoping to hear a definite answer from him. Of course it's true. If you don't believe me, you can send some grasshopper to the college cafeteria today. When the time comes, we'll definitely exchange money with grasshopper, Li Zishuan said with a smile. That's right, he wanted to introduce grasshopper eating in the college in advance so that when the grasshopper plague came next year, there would be people who could fight side by side with him. Moreover, the grasshopper was rich in protein, which was also very beneficial to the human body. As for how to make the students willing to eat the grasshopper, he already had a plan in mind. Wow! Thank you, young master! The group of children cheered and immediately scattered. It seemed like they went back to call their friends to get tools to catch the grasshopper. Hey! Daniel, come here! Li Zishuan quickly pressed on Daniel's shoulder to prevent him from moving. Young master? Daniel was confused. He didn't know why Li Zishuan called him. Here, I'll give you 5 copper coins. Give me your basket of grasshopper. Li Zishuan took out 5 copper coins from his pouch and handed it to Daniel. He also didn't know why there were copper coins in his pouch. He guessed that Han Yushi put them there before he left in the morning? Ah, it's good to have a considerate wife. Daniel looked at the bamboo basket in his hand and reacted. He quickly waved his hand and said, Young master, take the bamboo basket. I don't want your money. After saying that, he ran away like a wisp of smoke. Hey, this kid. Li Zishuan shook his head, then took the basket of grasshopper and walked towards Yanhuang College. Da-hu, come here. In the kitchen of Yanhuang College's cafeteria, Li Zishuan put his hands behind his back and shouted at a fat guy who was instructing people to wash vegetables. This person was the brother of Wang Eru, the head chef of Zuaxian restaurant. He was also the current head chef of Yanhuang College's cafeteria, Wang Da. In terms of talent in cooking, Wang Dahu was not as good as Wang Eru, but they weren't too far apart. Li Zishuan saw that this person was honest and sincere, so he called him over. Yamacho, why are you here? Hearing Li Zishuan's voice, Wang Dahu wiped his sweat and hurried over. Dahu, are you busy now? I have something for you. Li Zishuan nodded and asked softly. I'm not busy. Yamacho, if you have anything, just tell me. There were still more than 2 hours before the students' dinner time, so he wasn't very busy now. Okay, come with me. I'll teach you how to cook a dish. Li Zishuan squeezed the bamboo basket in his sleeve and said to Wang Da. After saying that, he took the lead and walked towards a small cubicle on the side. A dish? Did Yamacho invent a new dish? Wang Dahu, who was behind him, thought to himself. Chapter 745. Dahu, go boil these locusts with boiling water. Once they're dead, wash them clean and soak them in the water. Sprinkle some salt and marinate them. Li Zishuan passed the bamboo tube to Wang Dahu and instructed him as he came to the small kitchen. Ah? Grasshopper? Yamacho, the new dish you're talking about is for me to cook grasshopper? Wang Dahu was about to reach for the bamboo tube when he suddenly realized something. He shuddered and said with a face full of fear. Li Zishuan rolled his eyes and said with annoyance, "That's right. This dish is deep-fried grasshopper? What's wrong? You're making a fuss over nothing." Wang Dahu was tongue-tied. He swallowed and mumbled, Yamacho, you can't eat grasshopper. You'll offend the locust god." In ancient times, due to the lack of knowledge about locusts, the probability of a locust plague was even higher. When faced with locusts that filled the sky, people said that they were formed from fish eggs. When they entered the water, they would turn into fish and shrimp. Furthermore, when the locusts covered the sky, due to fear, people called them the locust god. When a locust plague happened, the locusts would cause serious damage. Wherever they went, the trees, crops, and even the grass would be eaten clean. The farmers would not be able to harvest anything. This caused many poor people to lose their homes. They would starve to death on the streets and their corpses would be exposed in the wilderness. Even so, the people only knew how to worship the locusts. They did not dare to hunt the locusts. They allowed the locusts to eat the crops because they were afraid of the locust god's revenge. When he heard that Li Zishuan wanted to deep-fry locusts, Wang Dahu did not dare to accept Li Zishuan's order, not to mention whether these things could be eaten as a dish or not. Based on the people's reverence for the locust god, Wang Dahu did not dare to accept Li Zishuan's order. Locust god? Li Zishuan did not understand what a locust god was at first, but after some thought, he understood. He was angry and wanted to laugh at the same time. In his previous life, he heard about the story of Yao Chong, the wise prime minister, destroying the locust god. At the time, he was still grumbling about how could the ancient people be so stupid to treat locusts as gods? But now that he saw it with his own eyes, he had to believe it. What kind of bullshit locust god is this? This is just a little grasshopper that will die if you step on it. Li Zishuan casually took out a grasshopper from the bamboo tube. With a pa-ji sound, the green grasshopper was immediately flattened, and yellow liquid flowed out of its body. Did you see that? If this thing was the locust god, how could it have been stomped to death by me? Have you ever seen such a weak god? Li Zishuan pointed at the crushed locusts on the ground and shouted. Wang Dahu was dumbfounded. He knew that many children liked to catch locusts for fun. Even if they died, no one would care. After all, they were children. The gods probably wouldn't blame them, but Li Zishuan wasn't a child. Seeing that Wang Dahu was still in a daze, Li Zishuan said earnestly, Dahu, although you are not a student of Yanhuang College, you are considered half a student of Yanhuang College. As a student of Yanhuang College, you must understand that there is no God in this world. These locusts are a disaster to the crops, how can they be called gods? This is ridiculous. These things are only fit to be boiled in oil, do you understand? Wang Dahu was stunned for a long time before he nodded and said, I understand. Very good. Then go and do as I say. Li Zishuan could see that Wang Dahu had not completely changed his mind. He did not force him. After all, those old ideas were deeply ingrained in his heart. Without some time to digest them, he would not be able to completely abandon those old ideas. Yes, Yamacho. On the field, with Qing Yaojin as the temporary chief instructor, the students of Yanhuang College had a particularly heavy training schedule. The students felt that today was several times more tiring than the first day of military training. Run. Run. 121, 121, 1234. 1234. The instructors of Yanhuang College were like shepherds with whips today, and the students were like a flock of sheep. Under the shepherds' whips, they had no choice but to run with all their might, even though they did not know when this kind of running would end. Clang, 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 clang. When people were in pain, time would pass very slowly. However, no matter how slow it passed, the time that should pass would always pass. Just when everyone felt that a year had passed, the sound of the drums and gongs finally rang for the end of Yanhuang College. All the students could not help but heave a sigh of relief. They felt that if they were to train for a while longer, their entire lives would be gone. Beep beep. Gather. Qing Yaojin whistled and roared with his strength in the Grandmaster realm. Speaking of which, this bamboo whistle was almost broken by him this afternoon. It had to be said that old Cheng's lung capacity was really big. After blowing the bamboo whistle for an entire afternoon, the students of Class 1 still felt that their eardrums were buzzing. In a dozen breaths of time, all 16 classes of Yanhuang College had gathered. This speed definitely would not have happened a few days ago. Okay, for most of the students, today's training is over, but as soon as Qing Yaojin said this, many students realized that something was wrong. What did he mean by most of the students? Didn't all the students' training end? Qing Chumo's heart skipped a beat. It's coming, it's coming. The trap that the old man had set for everyone from the beginning was finally going to be revealed. The batch of students who have a foundation in martial arts that were selected in the morning, don't go eat first. Go eat after 2 hours of additional training. From now on, you will be called the special training class. In the morning, Qing Yaojin had selected a total of 36 students who had a foundation in martial arts from more than 600 students. During lunch, these students did indeed enjoy meat that they had not eaten for a long time. Therefore, in the afternoon, except for Qing Chumo, they were secretly glad that they had been selected by Qing Yaojin in the morning. This way they would be able to eat meat every meal in the future. It was really a blessing. But now, after Qing Yaojin's words, they finally understood why there was a saying that there was no free lunch in the world. Tricks, it was all AF * king trick. The Academy's tricks are deep. We are going back to Chang'an City. There's actually additional training? Why? In the morning, High Duke Lu did not mention anything about additional training. Some students could not help but talk about it below. Haha. Ugly ox, it seems that I have really wronged you. It turns out that High Duke Lu is not targeting me. Haha. The happiest person was none other than Li Tai. When the little fatty saw Qing Chumo and Li Ku's bowls filled with meat in the afternoon, he was filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. But now, our Prince of Wei expressed that if he wanted to eat vegetables, then so be it. At least it was better than having to train for 2 hours. Chapter 746. Raise your hand. You can't hold the MO sword like that. Use more strength. You're so soft. Can you chop someone to death? Think about it. What you see in front of you isn't a wooden stake, but the wolf cavalry of the north. If you don't chop them to death, they'll kill you. Look at how weak and listless you are right now. You're just like a motherf * King Softy. You're a disgrace to our Tang Empire on the battlefield. On the sports field of Yanhuang College, most of the students had gone to eat. Only the 36 students of the special training class and Qing Yaojin, the initiator of the special training, remained. You'll practice chopping for the next 2 days. When you can chop the wooden stake in front of you in one stroke, you can end the first phase of the special training in advance. Chop for 2 hours every day. You'll have to chop at least 500 times. Cheng Yaojin instructed the students while instructing them on how to hold the sword. Ching Chumo and Yuchi Baolin looked at the thick wooden stake and the chipped and rusty Mo sword in their hands. They couldn't help but gulp. They suddenly felt that their future was bleak. Hey! What's wrong? Do you think that the task this old man assigned to you can't be done by ordinary people? Then watch carefully. Cheng Yaojin knew what the students were thinking when he saw the look in their eyes. Thus, he stepped forward and took the Mo sword from Ching Chumo's hand. He twirled the Mo sword with one hand, and then the Mo sword slashed at the thick wooden stake with lightning speed. Bam! Under the stunned gazes of the students, the rusty Mo sword in Ching Yaojin's hand was like a peerless divine weapon that could cut through iron like mud. It easily cut through the wooden stake from the middle. With a pring sound, the wooden stake that was cut off fell to the ground. The students could clearly see that the surface was as smooth as a mirror. This time they were completely silent. They stole admiring gazes at Ching Yaojin. People who practice martial arts have always worshipped the strong. In the past, they had heard of Ching Yaojin's bravery on the battlefield. Today, they knew that Ching Yaojin's martial arts were equally shocking. Ching Chumo chuckled proudly because his father had shown his face in front of his classmates. As his son, he felt honored. Did you see it clearly? This old man doesn't expect you to be like me just now. You can use both hands to hold the saber. As long as you can chop the wooden stake in half, you pass. Then this old man will lead you to the next stage of training. As long as you work hard from now on, you will definitely become strong. After mingling in the imperial court for so many years, Cheng Yaojin still knew how to say a few words. In just a few words, he had made the group of youngsters in front of him agitated and their faces flushed red. I heard it. Instructor, we will definitely train well. Cheng Yaojin smiled with satisfaction and said, Then let's start now. Practice chopping for 2 hours before you can go eat. Of course, the students obeyed. For a moment, the field was filled with the sound of blunt sabers colliding with wooden stakes. Cheng Yaojin held his hands behind his back and guided the students on how to hold the saber. Okay, today's special training is over. Let's go eat. Oh right, put the saber aside. Don't take it with you. After 2 hours, the sky had gradually darkened. Cheng Yaojin hurriedly said to the students in the special training class. It was not that he did not want to train a little longer, but if he delayed any longer, the gates of Chang'an would be closed and he would not be able to go back. Oh, school is finally over. Phew. Let's eat, let's eat. The students let out cheers of relief. Ching Chumo looked at Cheng Yaojin and said, Dad, do you want to go to the cafeteria to eat? The food here is delicious. It's not inferior to the Zuatian restaurant. Although this guy was afraid of Cheng Yaojin, filial piety was not to be disobeyed. As a son, he still had to be filial. Cheng Yaojin waved his hand and said, No need. I still have to go back. Chonyo, ask a few people to move these sabers into the building. I'll be leaving first. Ching Chumo was dumbfounded. He did not expect that instead of sucking up to his father, he would get himself into trouble. Damn it. Virgo, I'll help you move them. Yuchi Baolin laughed heartily. Ha! Good brother. Let's go. Let's go eat when we're done. Phew. Finally we can eat. I wonder what's left? Please don't run out of meat. 15 minutes later, Ching Chumo and Yuchi Baolin arrived at the cafeteria. Ching Chumo rubbed his stomach and thought gloomily. At this time, the cafeteria was almost empty except for the students from the special training class who had just arrived. Sadly, they were the last two to arrive at the cafeteria. Yo, you're from the special training class. The waiter was about to get off work when he saw Ching Chumo coming and saw the sign hanging on Ching Chumo's body. He quickly greeted him with a smile. Hey, is there any more meat? I want 2 portions of braised pork, 1 portion of lion's head, and 2 portions of rice. Ching Chumo nodded his head and said to the person who brought the food, there was enough meat and rice. This was Ching Chumo's only consolation. Student, I don't have any more lion's head. I only have 2 portions of braised pork and dongpa meat left. The waiter said apologetically. Ching Chumo's eyes widened. Sure enough, the thing that worried him the most had happened. In this situation, he could only eat 1 portion of braised pork and 1 portion of dongpa meat. He wanted 2 portions of each, but then what would Yuchi Baolin eat? He could not do that. Then give me 1 portion of braised pork and… What's this dish? Why haven't I seen it before? Ching Chumo began to order helplessly. Suddenly, he caught a glimpse of a bowl of something golden near the window. He quickly asked, this is the new dish that our manager came up with today. It's called flying yellow locusts, Tang. This is not for sale yet. It's only a trial today. It will only be sold tomorrow. Hey, flying yellow, meteoric success. This is a good name. Give me 1 portion, quick. The locusts were wrapped in eggs and flour. They were fried until they were golden yellow and tender. They looked so delicious. The more Ching Chumo looked at them, the more he wanted to eat them. But what? Do you see? I'm a student of the special training class. According to the rules, I can eat whatever I want in this cafeteria. Do you understand? Oh, right, what is this flying yellow, meteoric success made of? It looks like it's fried with some kind of meat. Ching Chumo glanced at the golden delicacy but could not figure out what it was. He could only ask, This is a secret. Our chef said not to tell anyone. Tisk. Why are you being so secretive? I don't want to know. Quick, give me my food. Ching Chumo pursed his lips and said. Chapter 747. Oh? Delicious, so King delicious. In the Yanwang College cafeteria, Ching Chumo tried a taste. As soon as the crisp and soft meteoric success entered his mouth was instantly filled with the aroma of eggs and meat, as well as a tinge of numbness. This was the effect of the Sichuan pepper. Ching Chumo couldn't help but open his eyes wide and exclaim how delicious it was. He couldn't stop at all. The Sichuan pepper originated in the Midwest of China. It was originally used as incense to worship the gods. It was recorded in the Book of Songs, Chun Feng, Song of the East Gate. The Sichuan pepper was a custom in the Han Dynasty. During the Three Kingdoms period, the Sichuan pepper began to be used as a condiment. Gulp. Seeing how much Ching Chumo enjoyed it, Yuchi Baolin couldn't help but gulp and say, Ugly ox, is this meteoric success really that delicious? Yes, of course. I think this thing tastes better than gnawing chicken. Ching Chumo stuffed his mouth with oil as he spoke. Then what does this meteoric success taste like? What's it made of? Ugly ox, have you tasted it yet? Yuchi Baolin really wanted to eat it, but he was too embarrassed to ask. He could only ask Ching Chumo to describe it so that he could enjoy it. Oh, salty, fried, numbness, and meaty. As for what kind of meat it is, I haven't tasted it yet. In any case, I've never eaten this kind of meat before. Nonsense, of course I've never eaten locusts before. TSK, I actually got such a good deal when it's so delicious. Looks like this is God's reward for helping me clean up the knives in class today. Haha. At the end, Ching Chumo couldn't help but laugh heartily. However, only God knew if he would still laugh after he found out the truth. Although Ching Chumo's language skills were not good, Yuchi Baolin listened with great interest. His gaze toward the food in Ching Chumo's bowl became more and more covetous. Ahem, do you want to eat, Baolin? Ching Chumo was not stupid. At this time, he also realized that it was not good for him to eat alone, so he asked. Yes. Yuchi Baolin nodded repeatedly, his saliva almost dripping all over the floor. Seeing that you are my brother, I will give you 5, 6, 7. Yes, I will give you 7. It's not that I'm stingy, but Bao Lin, look, I don't have much left either. In the end, Ching Chumo split 7 locusts and gave them to Yuchi Baolin. Of course, he did not know that they were locusts. Otherwise, he would have given them all to Yuchi Baolin. Enough. Thank you, Shoox. Yuchi Baolin did not mind at all. He hurriedly picked up a locust from the bowl and stuffed it into his mouth, swallowing it in no time. His eyes widened as he exclaimed in admiration, delicious. Brother Chon Yo didn't lie to me after all. This meteoric rise is really delicious. Haha. How is it? I Ching Chumo treat my brother well, right? Chinke, Chengxian, Ziffin, Huayu, let me tell you guys something. After returning to his dorm, Ching Chumo did not even bother to take a shower. Instead, he told everyone in the dorm smugly. Li Tai saw that the corner of Ching Chumo's mouth was still stained with golden food residue. He wrinkled his nose and asked, "What news? You just want to show off to us that you ate meat today, right?" At the mention of this, Li Tai's appetite was aroused. He really wanted to eat meat. For a fatty like him, not being able to eat meat was so cruel. Ching Chumo said excitedly, No. Let me tell you guys, Baolin and I just ate a new dish in the cafeteria. I heard that it was made by the cafeteria's chef today. It was so king delicious. It was charred and tender, fragrant and crispy. When you ate it, you felt numb in your mouth. TSK, it was such a memorable taste. CK. Ching Chumo's night poisoning instantly made Li Tai jump out of bed. He asked anxiously, "What dish is it? What's it called? I'll go and try it tomorrow." Yuchi Baolin answered with a smile, That dish is called Meteoric Success. It's delicious. Meteoric Success? Li Tai muttered it twice. He felt that this name was too domineering. He secretly decided that he must try this dish tomorrow. However, Ching Chumo's next sentence immediately poured cold water on the little fatty. Chinke, don't even think about it. Meteoric Success is a meat dish. Only people in the special training class can eat it. CK. This is so king unfair. Li Tai was dumbfounded. Sun Ziffin, who was beside him, was also disappointed. Baolin, come here. I have something to discuss with you. After a while, Li Tai rolled his eyes and pulled Yuchi Baolin out of the room. Yo, Lord Ju, you're here. The next morning, Li Zishuan arrived at the entrance of the academy. He saw Chao Wendong waiting for him. There were 3 horse carriages behind him. He had no idea what was in them. Hey, Boss Chao? What are you doing here? Li Zishuan went up to greet him. He suddenly realized that Chao Wendong might have ordered the military training camouflage uniforms in the carriage. The 700 sets of uniforms that Lord Ju asked me to make have all been completed. I'm here to deliver the goods today. Lord Ju, please take a look. If there's anything wrong, feel free to tell me. I'll ask my subordinates to change it. Chao Wendong's smile was so wide that creases appeared on his face. He had received many envious looks from the academy. After all, Yanwang College was in the limelight. If he could build a relationship with Yanwang College, it meant that he had unlimited potential in the future. Let's talk inside. What's the point of standing here? Li Zishuan laughed and invited Chao Wendong into the academy. Chao Wendong's subordinates lifted the curtains of the horse carriages. Chao Wendong extended his hand and said, "Please take a look, Lord Ju." Li Zishuan nodded and walked forward. A pile of green camouflage uniforms entered his eyes. They weren't made of cotton, but were made of silk. These things were more breathable and cooler on the body. He casually took out a piece of clothing, and suddenly a familiar feeling surfaced in his heart. He had also worn this kind of clothing in his previous life. Lord Ju, what do you think? Are they okay? Chao Wendong saw that Li Zixuan was silent for a long time and thought that there were flaws in the clothes. He could not help but ask worriedly. Yes, yes. Not bad, not bad. The craftsmanship and quality are very good. Li Zixuan came back to his senses and praised. He then put down the clothes and said to Emozhong, get someone to move these clothes to the warehouse of Guanghua Building. Then, let Mr. Yen gather the students to collect them. Yes, Yamacho. Li Zixuan then said to Chao Wendong, Mr. Chao, come with me. I have something to tell you. Chao Wendong was delighted and quickly nodded. Okay. After you, Lord Zhu. Chapter 748. Lord Zhu, do you have any instructions for me? In the principal's office in Guanghua Building, Chao Wendong cupped his fists at Li Zixuan as he leaned against the sofa. I wouldn't dare to give you any instructions, but I have some small matters to discuss with you, Mr. Chao. Li Zixuan took a sip of water, then put down the teacup and smiled. Oh, Lord Zhu, you're being too serious. What's there to discuss? Feel free to tell me what you need. Chao Wendong stood up, flattered, and cupped his fists. Li Zixuan didn't bother with pleasantries and asked directly, What do you think of Plum Village and Yunshan, Mr. Chao? Chao Wendong was stunned. He didn't understand why Li Zixuan would bring this up out of the blue. He thought for a moment and answered. Plum Village is surrounded by mountains and rivers. The scenery of Cloud Mountain is unique and beautiful. It is a paradise. Yanhuang Academy is located on Cloud Mountain. In a few years, this place will definitely be a gathering place for talent. In addition, I heard that the Curious Pavilion has opened a branch in Plum Village. Soon, Plum Village will attract a large number of merchants to gather here. In other words, in a few years, this place will be filled with the world's culture and wealth. It's a land of treasures. Clap, clap, clap. Li Zixuan clapped and laughed. Ha, Mr. Chao, you have good taste. No wonder you can become the biggest cloth merchant in Beijing. With your foresight, I'm not surprised that you can achieve what you have today. Chao Wendong smiled like a Maitreya Buddha and waved his hands. You flatter me. To tell you the truth, Mr. Chao, what you just said is exactly my plan for the future of Plum Village and Cloud Mountain. I plan to rely on the powerful creative ability of Wonderful Taste Pavilion to turn Plum Village into a supermarket that is even bigger than Shi City. Then, with Yanhuang College's strong teaching staff, I'll turn Yunshan into a holy land of learning. Li Zixuan stood up and looked out the window, revealing his ambition. Although Chao Wendong had expected this, he still felt a ripple in his heart. He thought to himself, looks like I have to plan my plans for Plum Village in advance. Time waits for no one. Li Zixuan smiled and continued, perhaps Mr. Chao has doubts in his heart. What does what I said have to do with you? This matter is very important. The students of Yanhuang College mainly study engineering. In the future, there will be tens of thousands of students who will inherit my knowledge. At that time, with the top-notch academic ability of Yanhuang College and the strong creative ability of the Strange Taste Pavilion, there will be a huge market here. Boss Chao, you should be well aware of this. However, to build such a huge market, I alone will not be enough. I need many merchants to join in. Hence, I plan to set up a Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce in Plum Village. Only the members of the Chamber of Commerce will be able to sell the goods produced by the Strange Taste Pavilion. At the same time, they will also be able to enjoy the protection of the Chamber of Commerce. When Chao Wendong heard this, he immediately said excitedly, Lord Zhu, you are finally going to set up a Chamber of Commerce. 3 months ago, when Li Zixuan got married, Chao Wendong spent a lot of effort to prepare a congratulatory gift for Li Zixuan. It was all for the sake of leaving a good impression so that he could meet Li Zixuan. In the end, he did meet Li Zixuan. However, his suggestion to set up a chamber of commerce and raise the status of merchants was rejected by Li Zixuan without hesitation. Who would have thought that there would be such a pleasant surprise? Li Zixuan frowned and said in a low voice, Mr. Chow, don't misunderstand. The main purpose of setting up a chamber of commerce is to develop Plum Village and provide a source of income for some merchants. As for raising the status of merchants, I will not and do not want to worry about it. Although there were many unfairness in the hierarchy of scholars, farmers, and businessmen, Li Zixuan was also one of the beneficiaries of this hierarchy. He had no responsibility and no obligation to help the merchants in their class struggle. You could say that he was selfish, but in this situation, he could only be selfish. Otherwise, his entire family would be implicated because of his audacity and willfulness. To Li Zixuan, no reputation was more important than his family. Chow Wendong choked for a moment and was immediately disappointed. However, he immediately thought about it. Even if Li Zixuan didn't help them raise their status, with Li Zixuan's Chamber of Commerce, at least they wouldn't be casually bullied by some unruly officials. This was a huge benefit. Lord Ju is right. This old man has never thought of troubling Lord Ju because of this matter. Forgive this old man for asking, but how can I become a member of the Chamber of Commerce? This was what Chow Wendong was most concerned about. Li Zixuan raised his teacup and smiled. It's very simple. To become a member of the Chamber of Commerce, you must first contribute to the development of the Chamber of Commerce. As for how to contribute, this is the reason why I invited Boss Chow here today. Chow Wendong's face was solemn and he looked like he was all ears. Boss Chow, you have already foreseen the future of Plum Village and Yunshan. This is very good. However, you did not see their current limitations. I would like to hear the details. Chow Wendong cupped his hands and said, Road. The main problem that Plum Village and Yunshan are facing now is the road. When I was traveling the world with my master, I once heard a county official say, if you want to be rich, you must first build the road. I think it is very reasonable. From the official road outside Chang'an City to Plum Village, the road is not only narrow but also bumpy. How can such a road carry the future of Plum Village and Yunshan? Therefore, the road from Chang'an City to Plum Village must be built, Li Zixuan said solemnly. Chow Wendong nodded and said, What Lord Ju said is very reasonable. The road in Plum Village should indeed be repaired. However, it will only be paved with some green stone slabs. I don't think it will cost much, right? Li Zixuan shook his head and said, I did not say that I want to repair the road with green stone slabs. I want to repair the road with cement. Seeing the confusion on Chow Wendong's face, he explained, It's the road in Yanhuang Academy. Chow Wendong's mouth was wide open. He did not expect Li Zixuan to be so serious. To be honest, after coming to Yanhuang College a few times, he had always been envious of the road and architectural style here. However, envy was not enough. Even if he was rich, there was no place where he could buy cement and the architecture in Yanhuang College. Although he did not know the cost of cement, he thought that it would be more expensive than green stone slabs. May I ask how much does Lord Ju need? Li Zixuan stretched out 2 fingers and said, About 200,000 strings of cash. The first batch of members to join the Chamber of Commerce will depend on the amount of money they donate to determine the weight of their words in the flaming yellow Chamber of Commerce. Chapter 749. In 3 days, I will hold a bidding meeting at the Drunken Immortal Inn. All 200,000 strings of cash will be up for grabs. Of course, if the final number is less than 200,000 strings of cash, no matter how much it is, I will personally fill it up. The road in Plum Village must be repaired. In the office, Li Zixuan explained his plan. Chow Wendong rolled his eyes and asked tentatively, Lord Ju, I wonder if this old man can buy all of the 200,000 strings of cash by himself? Taking out 200,000 strings of cash at once was a little painful for Chow Wendong, but he felt that it was completely worth it. It all depended on whether Li Zixuan was willing or not. Li Zixuan looked at Qiao Wendong in surprise. He probably did not expect this ordinary-looking businessman to be so bold. But after thinking about it, he shook his head and said, "Boss Qiao, doing business is about making money peacefully. It's not good to eat alone. Take the matter of repairing the road as an example. I can still take out a mere 200,000 strings of cash. But I didn't do that and left the opportunity to you, so—" I understand. You are right, Lord Zhu. I'm just too narrow-minded," Qiao Wendong said quickly. Li Zixuan shook his head and smiled. I understand Boss Qiao's intentions, but I don't intend to publicize the matter of the Chamber of Commerce. So, I'll have to trouble Boss Qiao to inform some wealthy businessmen in Chang'an City to participate. In the end, I will choose 5 people to be the first batch of members. He was a founding baron and a rank 3 crown prince, Zhan Shi. Establishing a chamber of commerce was not a pleasant thing to say. If word got out and everyone knew about it, it would be quite troublesome. So, he did not think of using Datang Daily to publicize the Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce from the start. 5 people. Qiao Wendong calculated in his heart. When the time came, each person would have an average subscription quota of 40,000 strings of cash. But it was rare to see people willing to fork out so much money for repairing the road. In this way, he had an opportunity. Don't worry, Lord Zhu. In less than a day, all the wealthy businessmen in Chang'an City who are qualified to participate in this bidding will definitely know about it. Qiao Wendong quickly promised. That's great. Then, I'll have to trouble Boss Qiao. After sending Qiao Wendong off, Li Zixuan came to the field and saw green military uniforms. Obviously, Yen Silu had already distributed the camouflage uniforms to the students. But why did it look so weird? Li Zixuan rubbed his eyes and took another look. He still felt that the students in the camouflage uniforms in front of him were very strange. Hey! Although it looks like a hooligan, it's really cool to wear. That's right. Moreover, this shirt doesn't have sleeves. It'll be much easier to move around like this. However, Mr. Yen only gave each of us 1 set of these clothes. Be content. I heard that these clothes were specially made for us by the Yamacho. They didn't even charge us for it. It's like giving it to us for free. But how can I change into only 1 set of clothes? Then I can only wash it every night and wear it the next day. Hey, this dress is quite comfortable, but the hair doesn't match the dress. It's in the way. Oh right, it's the hair. When Li Zixuan heard the students talking about his clothes, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. If the camouflage uniform and long hair does not look weird, then something must be wrong. Hey! Little Xian, after the students put on this kind of clothes, they all look quite spirited. If they train later, I guarantee that they will look better than before. You really have a lot of ideas. When Cheng Yaojin saw Li Zixuan coming over, he went up to him and patted him on the shoulder. Li Zixuan was speechless. What do you mean by ideas? Young master's idea was clearly a serious one, all right? Uncle Cheng, don't you think that these clothes and their hair don't match? Cheng Yaojin thought for a while and nodded. Indeed, they don't match. The style of your clothes is cool, but most of the students' hairstyles are the opposite of this style. Li Zixuan agreed. Uncle Cheng, you have a good eye. That is indeed the case. The only thing we can do now is to let the students tie up their hair and put it in a bun. Cheng Yaojin laughed. Haha, that's great. After the 2 of them finished their discussion, they arranged for the people below to get the hair tie. After a while, every student was given a hair tie. According to Li Zixuan's idea, everyone tied up their hair. Now, regardless of hairstyle or clothes, all the students looked neat and tidy. Although it's still a little weird, it looks much better overall. Li Zixuan thought in his heart. Haha. Not bad. Then I'll start the training. Cheng Yaojin squinted his eyes, looked around, and said, Okay. Li Zishuan nodded and then retreated to the rostrum. All instructors, listen up. Today's military training begins. All classes will train separately. As soon as he retreated, Cheng Yaojin's loud voice rang throughout the entire field. Li Zishuan was secretly surprised. Good heavens, he didn't even have to use the loudspeaker this way. Everyone in the first class, stand at attention. Look to the right. Look to the front. Turn to the right. Run. Bang 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 bang. Under Cheng Yaojin's command, the students of Class 1 took the lead to start a new day of military training. With neat and powerful steps, the cadence of the whistles, coupled with the students' neatly dressed camouflage uniforms, today's team was very different from usual. This bunch of rascals. I haven't seen them for a few days, and they're actually so obedient. Indeed, there's always something to conquer something. Just as the students were running hard, a few uninvited guests arrived at the edge of the field. It was Li Er, who had brought Zhang Sun and Chang'e to Yanwang College to visit the inmates. They were mainly there to check on Li Tai and Li Chengqian. They all knew that Li Ku was skilled in martial arts, so there was no need to worry about such a small military training. As soon as he arrived, Li Er saw such a group of uniformed students walking in neat step. Moreover, there were also his two sons in the team, as well as some of the second-generation hedonists of Chang, a city that he had seen before. This made him very surprised. Since when did those hedonists, who only knew how to walk chickens and fight dogs, become like a well-trained army? Imperial Father, look! That's Brother Qinke. He doesn't seem to be running very strenuously. Brother Qinke has become thinner, and he seems to have become darker. Chapter 750. Qinke. Chengqian. When Empress Zhangsun saw her two sons sweating profusely on the field, her heart instantly ached. After all, these two children were her flesh and blood. Don't worry, Guanyin. Li Er squeezed Empress Zhangsun's small hand and squinted his eyes. Guanyin, don't you see that Chengqian and Qinke have changed? Empress Zhangsun frowned and asked directly, what's different? Right now, she only cared about her two sons. How could she have the time to think about anything else? Li Er smiled, then pointed his other finger at Li Chengqian and Li Tai, who were running, and said indifferently, spirit, energy, spirit, they're all different. The most direct manifestation is, look at Chengqian and Qinke. Aren't their waists straighter? Aren't their legs more explosive? And they can even cooperate with others. Haha. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that in just a few days, Chengqian and Qinke have changed so much? Li Zishuan's military training is indeed something. Father, Brother Crown Prince and Brother Qinke are working so hard. Why does Brother Shaoxian insist on making them run? Chang'e tugged at Li Er's wide sleeve and asked with her small face raised. The naive little girl found it hard to understand this kind of strange behavior of running in circles around the field. Li Er rubbed Chang'e's small head and smiled. This is military training. It trains people's physical strength, endurance, and ability to cooperate with team members. Although it's hard, it's still very necessary to mold young people's personalities. Chang'e nodded as if she understood. The little girl looked at the long green line on the field and smiled. Although Chang'e's heart aches for Brother Crown Prince and Brother Qinke, they're really pretty when they run. They're very imposing. Li Er laughed loudly. Haha. Father also thinks so. Then let them run 2 more laps later? This sentence was mostly a joke. After all, Li Er wouldn't trick his own children. However, Empress Zhangsun took it seriously. She hurriedly said, Your Majesty, please don't. The weather is so hot right now. What if? Li Er smiled and shook his head. Haha, I'm just joking with Chang'e. Guanyin, don't worry. Greetings, Your Majesty. At this moment, Li Zishuan walked over from the side and bowed. He had just stood on the rostrum and looked down at the overall situation. Not long after Li Er walked into the field. He saw them from above and came down to greet them. Rise. Li Er nodded and said, Did you make the green clothes that the students are wearing? Li Zishuan did not expect Li Er's first concern to be the clothes. He replied, Your Majesty, I mainly want the students to wear uniform so that it is convenient for training. Secondly, this kind of clothing is cool and breathable. It can reduce the burden on the students. Li Zishuan frowned and remained silent. Seeing this, Li Zishuan continued, Your Majesty, I call this kind of clothing camouflage clothing. Actually, camouflage clothing has another advantage. When in the wild or in the jungle, camouflage clothing can hide the body better. Sure enough, as soon as Li Zishuan finished speaking, Li Er's eyes lit up. It was obvious that he had thought of the military use of the camouflage uniform. Then why did Li Zhanshi let Chengqian and Qinke run one round after another? Suddenly, Empress Zhangxuan's unfriendly voice came from the side. Li Zishuan was stunned. He did not understand why the usually gentle and kind Empress suddenly became so difficult to talk to today. However, he thought about it and understood. He cupped his hands and said, I understand your love for your son. However, as the saying goes, jade cannot be made into useful without being carved. Qinke and the others will bear the heavy responsibility of developing engineering in the future. If they do not have a good body, how can they carry on until the end? Moreover, as far as I know, people like Qinke who are overly obese will easily have headaches, dizziness, tinnitus, and other symptoms once they reach middle age. It is very difficult to treat. In serious cases, it can be life-threatening. Therefore, I also plan to use this military training to help Qinke lose weight. I am doing this for his own good. Empress Zhangxuan's expression changed. She asked in a low voice, Is this true? Li Zishuan nodded solemnly and said, Absolutely true. Empress Zhangxuan's face was ghastly pale. Li Zishuan was rather famous in the field of medicine. This time, he spoke with such certainty. She had no choice but to believe him. Seeing this, Li Zishuan glared fiercely at Li Zishuan. Then, he comforted, Don't worry too much, Empress. Qinke is still young. I have plenty of time to invite all the famous doctors in the world to help him lose weight. Empress Zhangxun shook her head and did not say anything. Li Zishuan also realized that what he had said just now was a bit too much, so he spoke up. Cough cough. What I said just now was only a certain probability of happening. I did not say that it would definitely happen. Moreover, as long as Qinke can persevere through the military training, there will naturally not be such problems in the future. Empress Zhangxun breathed a sigh of relief. She looked at Li Zishuan with a complicated expression and said, Then I will have to trouble Li Zishuan to take care of Qinke. After saying this, she felt that it was a bit absurd. She had sent her son to be tortured in the hands of others, and instead, she had to thank others. No matter how she thought about it, this matter was awkward. Haha, alright. Let's go somewhere else to have a look. Li Zishuan looked at the time and said, Come. Your Highness, try this. It's very good for your asthma. As noon approached, Zhangxun wanted to see the cafeteria of Yanhuang College. After all, she was still worried that her son would not eat well here. After seeing that the environment of the cafeteria was not bad, Zhangxun wanted to have lunch here. Li Zishuan naturally agreed. The family of three ordered 4 dishes. Li Zishuan walked over with a plate of golden yellow dishes and said, Let's go. Li Zishuan and Empress Zhangxun were both present. Of course, Li Zishuan would not directly call Li Lizzie as Sister Changle. Brother Xiaoxian, what is this dish? Li Zishuan had scruples, but Changle did not. The little girl looked at the golden food on the plate and asked doubtfully. Li Zishuan stared blankly. Staring at Li Zishuan, he asked in a deep voice, You just said that this food can treat asthma. Is this true? Li Zishuan felt that these words were very familiar. Previously, Zhangxun had asked him similar questions. Was he here today to treat old Li's illness? Autumn locusts were high in protein and low in fat. In particular, the female locusts had many eggs, which were rich in lecithin. After being digested, the lecithin released choline. Not only could it improve one's memory, it could also stop coughing and relieve asthma, treat whooping cough and bronchitis. Replying to your Imperial Majesty, this subject only said that there were benefits, but did not say that it could be cured. Princess Changle's illness still needs to be slowly nursed back to health. Chapter 751. Oh, it's delicious. Imperial Father, Imperial Mother, have a taste. Li Zishuan and Li Er were discussing Changle's condition, but the person in question went to taste the yellow delicacies. It seemed that she didn't care about her condition at all. It couldn't be said that she didn't care. Perhaps the little girl knew that her illness couldn't be cured by medicinal stones, so she didn't want to show that she cared very much, lest her father and mother worry. Zhang Sun picked up a locust and looked left and right, but couldn't see what it was, because it was wrapped in eggs and flour. She tentatively put it into her mouth, and with a light bite, her mouth was suddenly filled with a crisp fragrance. Well, this thing is really delicious, but I can't tell what it's made of. Empress Zhangsun praised sincerely. She felt that this thing was more delicious than Ken's chicken. Li Zishuan said embarrassedly, "Your Majesty, this dish is called soaring success. As for what it's made of, forgive me for not being able to say." In fact, Empress Zhangsun also had qi disease, so eating more locusts was also very good for her body. But if Li Zishuan really said the ingredients of this dish, everyone present probably couldn't eat any more. Oh, soaring success? That's a good name. It's just that you're being so secretive. Could it be that you're afraid that this consort will steal your secret recipe? Empress Zhangsun smiled and said. Li Zishuan repeatedly said that he didn't dare, but this guy didn't say what the ingredients were. Li Er's curiosity was greatly aroused. He picked up a piece of soaring success into his bowl, and then quietly poked the egg on the surface with chopsticks. A cute locust head suddenly popped out, and Li Er's face suddenly became very interesting. Li Zishuan, come with me. Li Er quickly buried the locust under the rice, and then said to Li Zishuan opposite him. Empress Zhangsun and Changle looked at each other. Li Zishuan's heart thumped, and he felt that something was wrong. He braced himself and stood up, saying, "Yes, Your Majesty." "Bastard! How dare you feed locusts to the Empress and Changle? I see that you are getting bolder and bolder." Walking to a nearby pillar, Li Er shouted in a low voice with a gloomy face. Li Zishuan did not expect Li Er to find out so quickly that soaring success was made from locusts. However, he was not unprepared. His Majesty is angry because he thinks locusts cannot be eaten by humans. In fact, not only could locusts be used as food, they could also be used to detoxify, stop coughing, and stop asthma. They had extremely high medicinal value. Your Majesty, if you don't believe me, you can ask the doctors of the Imperial Physician Bureau. Li Er was stunned when he heard that. This was the first time he had heard that locusts had so many effects. Your Majesty, as long as you don't think that it's a locust when you eat it, the taste is still very good. Moreover, who knew how many locusts there would be next year? When the time comes, if this method of eating locusts becomes popular, coupled with the many chickens raised by the people, there will be no need to worry about the locusts not being wiped out. Li Zishuan added. Li Er was greatly moved, but he still hesitated and said, "But there is a saying among the people that there is a locust god. What if you incur the wrath of the gods?" Li Zishuan sneered and said, "Your Majesty, not to mention that there are no gods in this world, even if there were, they would not be locusts. They nibble away at crops and harm the common people. They can only be considered evil spirits and are not fit to be gods." Li Er nodded and then unhappily said, "No matter what, you cannot use the Empress and Changle as your experiment." Li Zishuan smiled and said, "Your Majesty is wise. This subject cannot bear the responsibility of this crime. In fact, before this there were already people who tried this dish. This subject saw that the response was not bad. In addition, these locusts were indeed beneficial to the Empress and Princess Changle's illness. Therefore, this subject brought it out." "Then who else?" Li Er asked. Li Zishuan smiled and told Li Er about Ching Chumo eating locusts yesterday. Li Er laughed and said, "That's more like it. Today we will give you some face and go taste that so-called soaring to the heavens." Looking at old Li's back, Li Zishuan silently cursed, "TSK? Still giving me face? If it weren't for me, old Li, you would have to eat locusts raw next year." The history books recorded, in the second year of Xinguan, there were locusts in the capital. Xin Mao entered the garden and saw locusts. He plucked several of them and said, "The people live in the valley. If you eat them, you would rather eat my lungs and intestines." He raised his hand and was about to swallow them when he admonished, "Evil things may become diseases." He said, "We are suffering for the people. Why should we avoid diseases?" Thus, he swallowed them. In this year, locusts are not a disaster. Compared to eating locusts raw, deep-fried locusts were obviously more delicious. Heh! Imperial Father, Imperial Mother, Changle? You're all here? When Li Zishuan and Li Er were talking, the gongs and drums of the academy had already sounded. Li Tai, who was always very enthusiastic about eating, was naturally the first to arrive at the cafeteria. After seeing the table of people inside, the little fatty was stunned, as if he had suddenly found his backbone. He hurriedly complained to Li Er and Empress Zhongsun, "Imperial Father, Imperial Mother, Xiaoxian, Yamacho deliberately abuses people. He punishes students every day and doesn't let us eat meat. He only lets us eat vegetables. You see, in just a few days I've lost weight." Li Zishuan widened his eyes and secretly thought that this little fatty was arrogant enough. He actually complained in front of him. It seemed that he would have to make things difficult for this fellow in the future. Li Er frowned. It was true that he doted on Li Tai, but Li Tai's behavior of complaining still made him a little unhappy. In his opinion, he was Li Shimon's son. If he was bullied outside, he should be bullied back. What was the difference between crying and complaining to him like this and a girl? "Qinke, Li Zhanshi is also doing it for your own good. Although it's a little bitter, it's only for a month. Just bear with it and it'll be over." Li Tai was instantly dumbfounded. What was wrong with this scene? Why was Imperial Mother, who used to be obedient to him, speaking up for an outsider today? Also, why was his tried and tested method of complaining and acting pitiful not working today? What this fellow didn't know was that he had the method of complaining and acting pitiful, and Li Zishuan had the knack of public relations in advance. Now, Li Er and Empress Zhongsun had already been public relations by him. Brother Qinke is so embarrassing. You actually came to Imperial Father and Imperial Mother to complain about Brother Xiaoxian. Shame on you." Changle, who was eating happily at the side, raised her head at this moment and made a funny face at Li Tai and giggled. Actually, her words more or less had the intention of helping Li Zishuan out of the predicament. Just as Li Tai was about to quibble, he noticed the golden and dazzling delicacies on the plate. He quickly ran over and sat beside Changle, saying, "Meteoric rise, this must be meteoric rise. Changle, you leave some for me, let me try it." Chapter 752. Qinke, have you forgotten the rules of the academy? Li Tai picked up a large locust and put it into his mouth, but Li Zishuan reminded him in a deep voice. Li Tai's action of putting the meat into his mouth immediately stopped, and his face showed both annoyance and reluctance. "Your Majesty, the students have finished school. Let's go back to the palace." Empress Zhongsun looked outside through the glass door of the canteen, and then said to Li Er, Well, Changle, let's go back to the palace. Father will bring you here to play another day. Li Er looked at Changle and said in a gentle voice. Empress Zhongsun smiled at Li Zishuan at this moment and said, Li Zhansher, His Majesty and I can't finish these things, so let Qinke do it for us so as not to waste it. What do you think? Li Tai immediately laughed, and at the same time, he gave his mother 32 thumbs up in his heart. Li Zishuan was speechless. Empress Zhongsun had always been wise, but she still had a heavy selfishness when it came to the problem of children. But this was just a small matter, and he didn't need to be unhappy with Empress Zhongsun because of it. Besides, the main ingredient of locust meat was protein, and Li Tai wouldn't gain weight even if he ate some. In this case, I respectfully send your Majesty and your Majesty off. Li Zishuan cupped his hands and bowed. Empress Zhongsun smiled and walked out of the door with Li Er and Changle. Before Changle left, she quietly turned around and waved goodbye to Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan smiled and waved back. Hey! Fragrant. So fragrant. I haven't eaten meat for a long time. I came at the right time today. After old Li left, Li Tai greedily sniffed the 5 dishes on the table, and then laughed very proudly. Li Zishuan glared at him angrily, but the words he had just said to Empress Zhongsun were still in his ears, so he couldn't be too harsh. He could only say in a strange tone, Qinke, you brat, take it easy. Don't overeat and you won't be able to run in the afternoon. There was only meat in Li Tai's eyes right now. He didn't care about anything else. He just vaguely answered, okay. Then, he buried his head in the food. Wow. Qinke, where did you get this meat from? Didn't they say that students in the regular class can't eat meat? Right at this moment, Li Chengqian walked in from outside and was surprised to see the 5 plates of meat on the table. Damn, dompa pork, braised pork, lion's head, these are all my favorite dishes. Qinke, save some for me. Sun Zifen followed closely behind Li Chengqian. However, this amusing idiot didn't pursue the source of the food. Instead, he went straight to the table and started snatching food. Li Tai panicked. Ba 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 ba. This damn fatty was really ruthless. He directly spat on the 5 dishes on the table. Hey! It's all mine. Let's see who dares to snatch it from me, haha. Li Tai protected the food plates and laughed proudly at Sun Zifen, who rushed up to snatch food. Sun Zifen's face suddenly looked like he had been f***ed by a dog. He pointed at Li Tai with a trembling hand and said angrily, Damn! Qinke, you're really f***king wasting natural resources recklessly. You can't finish all these dishes alone. What's wrong with sharing some with me? Li Tai rolled his eyes and started to say cheekily, I'm not giving it to you. I'm just asking you, are you angry? Are you angry? Are you angry? Sun Zifen was really furious at this moment. It was bad enough that he couldn't eat meat, but he was also ridiculed by others. How could he tolerate this kind of anger? Ba 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 ba. This amusing idiot took advantage of Li Tai's unpreparedness and actually spat 5 mouthfuls of saliva on the food plates. If you don't let us eat, then don't eat. Now, I'm asking you, are you angry? Sun Zifen also started to act cheekily and said proudly, Sun Zifen, I'm going to fight it out with you. The food that was about to be in his mouth suddenly disappeared without a trace. This kind of feeling was worse than killing Li Tai. The little fatty slammed the table and stood up, wanting to fight Sun Zifen to the death. When Li Zishuan saw that these 2 idiots actually started to spit at each other over a few dishes, he couldn't help but roll his eyes speechlessly. He went forward and reprimanded them. Spitting filth at each other in public, what kind of etiquette is this? This is simply ruining Yanhuang College's image. Get the hell out of here and get your food. Oh! Seeing that Li Zishuan seemed to be really angry, Li Tai and Sun Zifen decisively admitted defeat, and the 2 amusing idiots went to get their food with their tails between their legs. However, when Li Tai left, he still looked back at the dishes on the table reluctantly. Noticing Li Tai's small movements as the older brother, Li Chengqian couldn't help but cover his face, feeling a little flustered. Seeing that the farce was over, Li Zixuan turned around and left in a huff. Li Zixuan went to the kitchen from the back door of the cafeteria and taught Wang Dahu a new method of cooking locusts. After drying the locusts, grinding them into powder, then mixing them with flour and eggs, placing them in a pan of oil and frying them into cubes or meatballs. This way, no one would be able to recognize that this dish was made from locusts like Wang Dahu did. He remembered that in modern times, there were many factories that ground locusts into powder to make protein powder. This way, they could avoid the psychological barrier that many people had when eating locusts. Speaking of which, the cafeteria had received more than 100 caddies of locusts from the children of the two villages today. And according to the trend, they would receive more locusts in the next few days. Therefore, the academy would be eating locusts for a long period of time. If the students of the special training class couldn't finish it, they would leave it for the teachers of the academy. If they couldn't finish it, they would hand it over to shopkeeper Lu and sell it at the Drunken Immortal restaurant. After leaving the cafeteria, Li Zixuan went straight home and saw that the courtyard was already filled with baskets of eggs. The courtyard, which wasn't particularly big to begin with, suddenly became crowded. "Husband, we received more than 3,000 eggs in the morning. The farmers of the other villages heard the news and wanted to sell their eggs to us, but I saw that the Han village and Plum village had already sent over a lot of eggs, so I didn't take theirs." Han Yushi came up and said softly. She didn't look worried at all after receiving so many eggs. Obviously, she was very confident in her husband's methods. Li Zixuan nodded and said in agreement, "We should pay close attention to the farmers in our village. By the way, wife, have you prepared the ingredients that I asked you to prepare for me yesterday?" Han Yushi smiled and said, "Husband, they're all here. Do you want to start now?" Li Zixuan thought for a while and said, "Let's start now. The weather has been too hot recently, and the eggs aren't easy to preserve. It's better to do it early rather than late. Otherwise, many of the eggs will spoil. Didn't I ask housekeeper Wang to bring a group of servants over yesterday? Why don't I see them?" Han Yushi hesitated for a moment. Just as she was about to speak, she saw Madame Li walk out of the house and say, "Xian I didn't let them come. The century eggs you're going to make are our family's secret recipe. The fewer people who know about it, the better." Chapter 753. Yunshan, Courtyard Number 1. When Li Zixuan heard his mother's words, he couldn't help but be speechless. He really didn't expect his mother to have the awareness of protecting intellectual property. Her thinking was simply too advanced. "Mother, if we don't ask the servants to come and help us, how can we finish these thousands of eggs?" Li Zixuan looked at Madame Li and smiled bitterly. "Why is it impossible?" Madame Li looked at her son reproachfully and said, "There's me, your father, Yushi, Xiao He, and Xiao Shi here. There's a total of 5 of us. Xian teach us the method of making century eggs later, and you can go do your own things. The 5 of us will use half a day to finish all these eggs in the courtyard." Father Li looked up at the sky and was speechless. It seemed like Madame Li didn't discuss this decision with him in advance. He was represented again. Li Zixuan was sweating profusely. "Mother, compared to the Drunken Immortal and Fairy Mirror, these century eggs are just a small amount of money. Why should we trouble you and my father? Moreover, the farmers will send thousands of eggs in the future. How can you handle it?" Madame Li frowned. "I know that the money earned from these century eggs can't be compared to the Drunken Immortal and Fairy Mirror, but it's easier to imitate. If we don't pay attention, the recipe will be easily leaked. By then, there will be century eggs everywhere in the East and West markets. Won't we suffer a huge loss if we receive so many eggs? Xian this is the secret recipe that you got from your master. You can't let others take advantage of it." Li Zixuan was a little helpless when he met such a protective mother. He sighed and said, "Mother, the servants in our residence are all loyal. They won't spread the secret recipe. Moreover, the method of making century eggs is very simple. Even if we don't spread the secret recipe, others can imitate it in less than half a year. You don't have to do everything yourself." Madam Xian is right. The servants in our residence can withstand the test. You don't have to worry. Look, if you're exhausted, Xian will be worried, right? Seeing this, Li Jingma hurriedly said. He had been living a carefree life in Cloud Mountain recently. He didn't expect to be used as a coolie by his wife today, so he was naturally unhappy. At this moment, the situation took a turn, and Li Jingma didn't hesitate to assist. Madame Li glared at her husband and said after a while, "Since Xian'er says so, then we'll do as you say. Teach us the steps first, and tomorrow we will call the servants over to help." Li Zixuan smiled and replied, "All right, mother, come with me." In fact, the method of cooking the century egg was very simple. First, the surface of the egg was covered with lime that had been stirred with water. It had to be uniform. Then, the outside was covered with a layer of grass ash or wheat husk. It was ready to be left for about a month. When the time comes, the raw eggs will turn into crystal clear cooked eggs. Together with tofu and vinegar, it will be a different kind of delicacy. Han Yushi asked curiously, "Husband, how did this raw egg suddenly become a ripe egg?" Li Zixuan explained with a smile, "Dear, this is because quicklime is mixed with water. Xiaodong, did you sell your eggs to young master today?" In the Han family manner, a woman in green clothes stood outside the courtyard and shouted at Han Xiaodong, who was enjoying the cool air inside. "It's Aunt Luo. Yes, we sold more than 100 eggs to young master today. What's wrong?" Han Xiaodong came to the front of the courtyard and asked doubtfully. "Ah? So young master really accepted them?" Aunt Luo opened her mouth in surprise and said, "Then Xiaodong, do you know if young master will lose money by buying so many eggs?" Han Xiaodong smiled and said, "Haha, young master will never lose money. Young master has never done anything that he is not confident of. Since he dared to accept them, it means that he will not lose money." Aunt Luo smiled and said, "Hee hee, if that's the case, then I will send the eggs at home to young master in a while. I will also send the eggs from the child's uncle's house." Han Xiaodong hurriedly said, "Ah, Aunt Luo, wait. Young master will only accept eggs from our manor now. I'm afraid he won't accept eggs from other manors." "Ah? There's such a thing?" Master Luo asked in disbelief. "Yes, I don't think young master will be able to accept so many eggs at once." Han Xiaodong guessed. Oh, then I'll go back and send the eggs from my house to young master first." "Your Majesty, Dr. Wang and Dr. Qin from the Imperial Physician Department are here." In Ganlu Palace, Li Er was bent over the table and reading memorials. Today was the official day off, but as the Emperor, it was not easy for him to have half a day off in the morning. Therefore, after leaving Yanhuang College, he was full of thoughts about official business again. At this time, an attendant from the yellow door came in from the outside and bowed in a low voice. "Announce." Li Er did not even raise his head and said lightly. After a while, 2 middle-aged men carrying medicine boxes walked in from outside. They were the 2 doctors from the Imperial Physician Department who had followed Dugu Xin when he led the army to attack Snake Spirit Mountain, Dr. Wang and Dr. Qin. "Your subject greets your Majesty." The 2 doctors bowed to Li Er in unison. "No need for formalities," Li Er said lightly, then raised his head and looked at the 2 doctors. "My 2 beloved officials, I have invited you here today because I have something to ask you." Dr. Wang and Dr. Qin's eyelids twitched uncontrollably. The 2 of them quickly stepped forward and cupped their hands. "We dare not ask, Your Majesty. If there is anything you need, please let us know." Li Er stood up and walked to Dr. Wang and Dr. Qin. He thought for a while and asked, My two beloved officials, your medical skills are superb. I would like to ask if you know that locusts can be used as medicine to treat asthma? Dr. Wang and Dr. Qin frowned. After a while, Dr. Qin cupped his hands and said, Your Majesty, forgive me for my shallow knowledge, but I have never heard of locusts being used to treat asthma. Dr. Wang also bowed. I have also never heard of locusts being used to treat illnesses. Perhaps it exists in ancient books, and I have never seen it. Dr. Wang saw that Li Er's expression was not very good, so he added on. Li Er stood on the spot, his expression uncertain. One could not tell whether he was happy, angry, sad, or happy just by looking at his face. All right, I understand. My two beloved officials, you may go about your business. After a long while, Li Er waved his hand and said, Your subject will take his leave. Dr. Wang and Dr. Qin bowed and left the palace. Chapter 754. Phew! Chonyo, your father is finally leaving. I only just realized how good Duke E is. As night fell, most of the students returned to their dormitory after eating dinner and bathing. Li Tai was wearing a white silk undergarment and lying on the bed. He sighed contentedly with Ching Chumo, who was diagonally opposite him. Although Li Tai's words more or less had the intention of making up stories about his father, Ching Chumo didn't feel offended at all. Instead, he nodded in agreement. I also don't want my father to be the chief instructor of the academy. Not only are you tired, but our special training class is even more tired. Our hands are sore from practicing the Modeo for the past 2 days. Uncle Chin's training is still easier for us. Sigh. I hope your father won't come in the future. Your hands are sore from practicing the Modeo, but our legs are about to break from running these past 2 days. Li Tai rubbed his knees. The little fatty clearly still had a lingering fear from what he had experienced in the past 2 days. He felt that the distance he had run in the past 2 days was almost equal to the distance he had run in the past 10 years. Hee Qin-ke, you don't have to run. You're a prince, and Duke Lu won't eat you. Sun Zifen chuckled eccentrically. Li Tai said in annoyance, F***ck, Sun Zifen, you make it sound so easy. Why don't you go and try it? Duke Lu made that little black room. Once you go in, you can't come out for 3 days. You have to eat, drink, go to the toilet, and sleep in there. I can't stand it. There's an unlucky guy in class 10. What's his name again? Yes, he's called Chin Yi. I remember that his father is the assistant minister of the Ministry of Works. This unlucky guy was found slacking off by Duke Lu when he was patrolling this morning, so he was directly thrown into the little black room. I went to take a look during dinner and found that this guy was almost dead. He was crying for his father and mother inside. Furthermore, I can smell the stench from far away. To be honest, the small dark room was indeed very relaxing. He didn't have to train under the hot sun every day, and there was even someone to deliver meals to him. However, for someone like Li Tai who was a serious germaphobe, he couldn't stand it no matter what. This was also one of the reasons why even though Qing Yaojin gave him an unusually large amount of training, Li Tai still gritted his teeth and persevered. Now that the 2 days of high-intensity training were over, Li Tai felt that it was a little unbelievable when he thought about it. He didn't expect that he could complete so much training. If a person didn't have the pressure of external factors, they would never know where their limits were. Wow. Is that little dark room so exaggerated? Sun Zifen sighed in shock. Li Tai rolled his eyes and said, Why don't you give it a try? That won't do either, because with your size, that bucket probably won't be able to fit you. After staying with Ching Chumo and Sun Zifen for so long, Li Tai had also learned a new skill, taunting. Sun Zifen was so angry that he stomped his feet. Damn. You're making it sound like you can fit inside. Qin-ke, don't you know your own size? Seeing that the two fatties were actually arguing with each other, Ching Chumo grinned and laughed loudly. Ha ha. If it were up to me, the two of you should stop arguing. You definitely won't be able to fit inside. I'll ask my dad to specially make a large wooden bucket for you later. Damn. Ching Chumo, you're courting death. In an instant, the two little fatties formed a united front, turned their spearhead, and rushed forward to suppress Ching Chumo. Goo 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 goo. At 4 o'clock in the morning, Yenwang College's dormitory 001 not only echoed with snoring, but also with the sound of a stomach growling. It was Li Tai. At this time, the little fatty was actually still awake. Instead, he kept tossing and turning in bed, unable to fall asleep no matter how hard he tried. It was not for anything else but because he was hungry. Was there no hunger in this era? If you were hungry in the middle of the night, you could only hold your stomach and roll around in bed. In fact, to be precise, the little fatty was not hungry, but gluttonous. During the day in the cafeteria, because of Li Er and Zhang Sun, he was able to eat 2 mouthfuls of meat with great difficulty. At that time, he felt that he was going to die of happiness, but good things did not last long. In the end, Sun Zifen's arrival made his delicious lunch go up in smoke. In the first half of the night, he had a dream. He dreamed that he was back in the prince's mansion, and the table was filled with all kinds of delicious food, fish, and meat. Just as he was about to bite into the twice-cooked pork with his chopsticks, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his arm. When he came back to his senses, he realized that he was dreaming, and the twice-cooked pork in his dream was his arm. After that, the little fatty could no longer fall asleep. Thinking back to the 2 mouthfuls of delicious food he had eaten at noon, and the table of fish and meat in his dream, Li Tai's mouth was full of sour water. There had never been such a moment that made him want to eat meat so badly. Now, as long as someone could give him a plate of meat to eat, Li Tai was even willing to exchange thousands of coins, or even tens of thousands of coins of wealth. In the end, Li Tai could not stand it anymore. He could only get out of bed and planned to go outside the dormitory to get some fresh air. At this time, the instructors were all asleep, so no one would check on the dormitory. Therefore, Li Tai was not worried at all. Yenwang College's dormitory was actually a building complex. The rooms were neatly arranged in a very large courtyard. Since there was a courtyard, there was naturally a courtyard gate. Li Tai stood in front of the iron fence gate of the courtyard, enjoying the cool summer night breeze. Looking at the neat rows of trees outside the courtyard and their reflections under the moonlight, his agitated heart calmed down a little. Sha sha. At this moment, Li Tai suddenly heard the sound of footsteps coming from behind him. Little Fatty was startled and turned around to look. He saw that there was indeed a white-clothed figure with long hair behind him. The figure was about the same size as him. Li Tai thought that he had seen a ghost, so he was shocked at first. When he saw the face of the person in front of him, he was so angry that he immediately scolded, "Fuck! Sun Zifen, you didn't sleep well in the middle of the night and specifically came out to scare people. Are you crazy?" That's right, the person who came was Sun Zifen. Sun Zifen crossed his arms and said with a smile, "Hey, Chinke, didn't you also not sleep in the middle of the night? You still have the nerve to talk about me?" Li Tai reacted and quickly explained, I felt that the room was too hot, so I came out to get some fresh air. What does it have to do with you?" Sun Zifen raised his head and thought for a while, then said, "Then I saw you come out alone, Chinke. I was worried about your safety, so I came out to take a look. What's wrong?" "Fuck, you're bullshitting. You're worried about me?" "Ah pooey, no, this king needs you to worry about me?" Li Tai glared and scolded angrily. "Humph, believe it or not." Sun Zifen sat on the stone bench next to the courtyard gate and snorted indifferently. Chapter 755. Forget it, I'll tell you the truth. Beside the door of the dormitory, Li Tai saw that Sun Zifen didn't believe him and decided to tell the truth. "I woke up hungry. I want to eat meat." Although it was night time, One could still see that Sun Ziffin's eyes lit up. This little joker quickly nodded and said, "Yes, yes, yes, I also woke up hungry. Chinke, your meat dishes at noon were too fragrant. I couldn't help but think of that smell when I lay in bed. It was too tempting. Sigh, it's just that I didn't get to eat it at noon. What a pity. Damn. Sun Ziffin, you still have the nerve to say that. If it weren't for you, I would have had a big meal at noon and wouldn't be foolishly accompanying you to watch the moon." It would have been fine if Sun Ziffin didn't say anything. Once he said it, Li Tai, this powder keg, directly ignited. The little fatty rushed to Sun Ziffin's side and kicked the ladder twice. Then, he suddenly raised his voice. "Hey, hey, hey! Chinke, lower your voice. If you alarm the instructors, we'll all have to go to the small dark room." Sun Ziffin jumped up from the sudden attack. However, he didn't immediately retaliate. Instead, he put a finger to his mouth and whispered to Li Tai. The little fatty immediately cowered. He glanced at the instructor's dormitory not far away. Seeing that there were no lights on there, Li Tai couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. No matter what, it's because you spoiled my dishes at noon that I didn't get to eat a big meal. Let's settle this grudge. Sun Ziffin, just you wait. See how I'll deal with you in the future when I have the chance," Li Tai said hatefully, but his voice was much softer than before. It had to be said that his words, "you spoiled my dishes," were used in the right place. "Damn, you can't blame me for this. If you didn't spit into the dishes first, I wouldn't have spat too. Besides, if you're willing to share 2 pieces of meat with me, I won't spoil your dishes, right?" It was not a good thing to be remembered by Li Tai. Moreover, he had gone overboard in the afternoon. Therefore, Sun Ziffin thought for a while and added, "Chinke, there's no point in talking about this. Both of us want to eat meat so much that we can't sleep. How about this? I'll take you out to eat meat tonight, and we'll forget about what happened at noon?" Li Tai pursed his lips and said in disbelief, "Where can we go to eat meat this late at night? Who are you trying to fool?" Sun Ziffin said confidently, "Hey, Chinke, if you don't believe me, tell me if you agree or not." Seeing this, Li Tai nodded without hesitation and said, "Okay. As long as you don't bring me to eat meat tonight, I'll write off everything that happened before." To him, as long as he could eat meat, he would be willing to give any amount of money, let alone such an insignificant promise. Then, Chinke, wait for a while. I'll go back to the dormitory to get something." Sun Ziffin licked his lips and laughed proudly before sneaking back to the dormitory. Li Tai didn't have time to ask, so he could only sit on the stone bench beside the courtyard door and wait for Sun Ziffin to return. After about half a cup of tea's time, Sun Ziffin finally returned. However, there were 4 people behind him: Qing Chumo, Qin Huayu, Yuchi Jingda, and Li Chengqian. "Hey, you 2 want to go out to get something good to eat and you didn't call me? Luckily, I'm alert. Otherwise, wouldn't I have suffered a huge loss?" Qing Chumo pointed at Sun Ziffin and Li Tai as he laughed wantonly. Although this fellow's martial arts skills were at a half-baked level, his martial arts realm was still the highest among the 6 people in Dormitory 001. Previously, when Li Tai left the dormitory, Qing Chumo had already sensed it, but he was too lazy to move in bed, so he didn't care. When Sun Ziffin returned, he jumped down to catch him and interrogate him about what he was up to. With this commotion, the few people in the dormitory woke up. When they heard that Sun Ziffin was preparing to bring Li Tai out to get some meat, they all couldn't help but swallow their saliva and request to go together. Although Li Chengqian was the country's heir and couldn't do such a shameful thing, he was worried that Li Tai's group would be caught if they went out, so he came along. "Tisk. Chonyo, you and Baolin have been eating meat for the past 2 days. Why are you joining in the fun now?" With the help of the 2 experts, Qing Chumo and Yuchi Baolin, it would be easier for them to go out to get food. However, Li Tai's mouth was full of jealousy. "TSK, we can't have enough meat. Alright, let's not talk nonsense here. Let's get out of the dormitory first. Otherwise, we'll be discovered by the instructors later. Ching Chumo glanced to the side and suggested. The few of them felt that it made sense and agreed. Come, Baolin. Lend me some strength. If they wanted to climb over the door, of course, they would need someone to support them from below. However, when it was Li Tai's turn, Ching Chumo felt a little diffident and said to Yuchi Baolin, who had just sent Qin Huayu to heaven. Hey, coming. Yuchi Baolin responded and hurried over. With the combined strength of the two, they finally sent Li Tai to the top of the door. Now, all that was left was for the little fatty to hold onto the metal fence and slide down. Not long after, the 6 people from Dormitory 001 all climbed out of the dormitory door. And then? Sun Zifen, didn't you say you could bring me to eat meat? Where are we going next? Li Tai clapped his hands and looked at Sun Zifen. Climbing over the door of the academy dormitory was the first time Li Tai had done something so unorthodox. It was like a modern university student skipping class for the first time. While he was nervous, he also felt a little excited. Hey, follow me, I'll bring you guys to eat chicken. I know a place with a lot of chickens. Sun Zifen rubbed his hands and chuckled. It was also his first time doing something so exciting. His heart was still thumping. When everyone saw Sun Zifen's confident look, they followed him and walked forward. Of course, they couldn't walk through the door of the academy. There were still guards there even at night. The few of them climbed over the wall at a corner in the west. Then, using the moonlight, they followed Sun Zifen all the way to a forest halfway up the mountain to the west of the academy. It's right here. Sun Zifen pointed at the reed wall not far ahead and said with a smile, This is the chicken farm that Plum Village built at the foot of the Cloud Mountain. Let's go catch 2 and find a place to roast them. Wouldn't that be perfect? Li Chengqian was shocked. He hurriedly dissuaded them. Zifen, you can't. The chickens in Plum Village were personally handed over to the farmers by the Yamacho. If we catch 2 and are discovered, we'll definitely end up in trouble. There are tens of thousands of chickens in here. No one will find out if we lose 1 or 2. Sun Zifen patted his chest and said, Yes. We'll only catch 2, no 3. The farmers will definitely not find out. Li Tai swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva and said with his eyes staring straight ahead. Chapter 756. In the end, under Li Tai's insistence, this group of chicken thieves caught 6 chickens from the chicken farm at the side. The main reason was that Li Tai felt that the chickens inside were too small and not enough to eat, so he caught 3 more. Yes, 6 people, 1 chicken each, just right. The flock of chickens that had been chasing and playing in the forest for an entire day would never have thought that an evil person would break into the chicken farm and steal them on what was supposed to be a quiet and peaceful night. Qin Ke Zifen, it's not easy for the farmers to raise these chickens. It's not good for us to steal them like this, right? The dignified crown prince of the country was actually holding a chicken fearfully at this moment. However, when it came to this, Li Chengqian was a little hesitant. He turned back to look at the chicken farm and said with some pity, Hey, we've already prepared for this, Your Highness, don't worry. Sun Zifen chuckled, then took out 2 strings of copper coins and threw them into the chicken farm. He then said with a smile, There's no problem now, right? 6 chickens, 2 strings of copper coins, I'm sure the farmers won't suffer a loss. Everyone looked at Sun Zifen curiously. They probably didn't expect this joker to have a time when he considered things so thoroughly. Hey, good. You're good. In this way, even if the farmers find out that 6 chickens are missing, I'm sure they won't make a fuss. Let's find a place to roast these chickens and eat. Li Tai praised Sun Zifen with satisfaction and then said, Hey, come with me, I know a place suitable for roasting chickens. Sun Zifan took the initiative to volunteer. The few of them had no objections. They followed Sun Zifen to the top of the Cloud Mountain, to an open space in the east of the academy. There was a clear spring beside them, reflecting the moonlight. It was a quiet and empty valley with the moon shining between the pines and the clear spring flowing over the rocks. Chon Yo, Bao Lin, you kill the chickens. Your Highness, Qin Ke, the three of us will go find firewood. Huayu, you help move the stones and build a stove. How about that? After finding such an excellent spot for a picnic, Sun Zifen began to assign tasks to everyone. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it too. Qing Chumo, Yuchi Baolin, and the others agreed and began their respective tasks. It had to be said that Sun Zifen's division of labor was rather reasonable. Qing Chumo and Yuchi Baolin, the two daring fools, were not careless in the slightest when it came to slaughtering the chickens. In no time at all, the 6 chickens that had been born for less than half a year ended their short life. If Li Chengqian and Li Tai were to do this job, they probably wouldn't be able to achieve this result even after fiddling for half a day. 15 minutes later, a bonfire lit up in the empty space beside the spring. Sun Zifen, Li Tai, Li Chengqian, Yuchi Baolin, Qin Huayu, and Qing Chumo sat around the bonfire. Each of them held a bamboo stick, and at the tip of the bamboo stick was a slaughtered and cleaned chicken. They extended the stick into the fire and continuously spun it. Yes, there's already the fragrance of meat. Li Tai took 2 deep breaths and smelled the charred aroma of the chicken being roasted. The little fatty couldn't help but lick his lips, and his appetite was greatly aroused. It's still lacking a bit. Qin Ke, you just need to spin it a few more times and you'll be able to sprinkle salt. Sun Zifen glanced at the meat that Li Tai was roasting and said, Sprinkle salt? Oh right, we didn't bring any salt. How the hell are we going to sprinkle salt? Qing Chumo slapped his thigh and shouted regretfully. Li Tai's face revealed a trace of regret, but the little fatty still said unyieldingly, If there's no salt, then there's no salt. As long as there's meat to eat. Qing Chumo said disdainfully, Hee, Qin Ke, you're really desperate now. You can even eat meat without salt. Hee, who said there's no salt? At this moment, Sun Zifen took out a small bag from his arms and said proudly to everyone, The salt is here. Everyone can have some later. Li Tai opened his eyes wide and said incredulously, Damn, Zifen, why are you so awesome today? You brought everything out. Copper coins, fire rolls, and refined salt. What else do you have in your arms now? The others also looked at Sun Zifen in surprise. Sun Zifen touched his nose and said with a smile, Haha, in fact, I've long wanted to catch 2 chickens to have a sumptuous meal. I've prepared these 2 days ago. Yamacho is too deceitful and doesn't give us any meat. You little bastards, instead of sleeping in the middle of the night, you actually came here to make a barbecue. How dare you? At this moment, a cold voice came from the horizon, which gave them a fright. They followed the voice and saw a man in white coming from Dongfang Takshu. His white clothes were whiter than snow, and his sleeves were fluttering, like an immortal banished from the moon. Damn it! It's over, it's Yamacho. On the night of the Mid-Autumn Festival, when Li Zixuan took a fairy lamp for a night tour of Chang, and with a beauty, Sun Zifen had seen him like this before. So, he was the first one among the group to recognize Li Zixuan. Hearing what he said, the rest of the group suddenly panicked. They put out the fire and hid the chickens in a hurry. Okay, don't put it out and don't hide it. I saw it all. In the blink of an eye, Li Zixuan had landed near them. Seeing them in a hurry, Li Zixuan couldn't help but say, Yamacho, this is all a misunderstanding. We were all sleepwalking just now. Chonyo, Qin Ke, why are we all here? Weren't we all sleeping in the dormitory just now? Oh, we must be sleepwalking. Yes, we must be sleepwalking. Sun Zifen looked at Li Zixuan awkwardly. This funny guy racked his brains to come up with all kinds of excuses, but in the end, he could only blame sleepwalking. Li Zishuan didn't believe him at all. He wasn't stupid. At this moment, he sneered, pointed at the half-cooked chickens on the ground, and said, "Ha ha! Sleepwalking? Putting aside the fact that the 6 of you sleepwalked together and sleepwalked to the same location, each of you managed to catch a chicken while sleepwalking? I'll give you one more chance. Do you want to sleepwalk like this again? You left the academy without permission and dared to steal chickens raised by the farmers. This is a serious violation of the academy's rules. Do you have any respect for me? Do you have any respect for the academy? Do you still deserve to be Yanhuang College's students?" Li Zishuan's harsh words made Sun Zifen sweat profusely. The others were also silent. In the end, Li Chengxian could only step forward and plead. Xiaoxian, Yamacho, Qin Kai and Zifen were just greedy for food. They didn't deliberately violate the academy's rules. Can you spare them this time? Qing Chumo, Sun Zifen, and Li Tai all looked at Li Zishuan anxiously. After all, today's matter could be serious or small. If it was serious, Li Zishuan could expel them because of this. Chapter 757. Xiaoxian Yamacho, this is indeed our fault. Don't lower yourself to our level. It's best if you just let us go. Seeing Li Zishuan's serious expression, Qing Chumo could only shamelessly laugh. Li Zishuan had inadvertently caught a glimpse of a fire when he woke up at night. At that time, he thought that there was a fire here. He didn't even bother to change his clothes and hurriedly used his qingong to fly over. But when he arrived, the bonfire, chicken feathers, and chicken meat on the ground all told him what had happened on the mountain tonight. Someone had the guts to steal chickens from a farmer while it was dark. The farmers worked hard to raise chickens to reduce their taxes. In the end, you guys ate their chickens because of a momentary lust. Tell me, aren't you guys wicked? Where's your conscience? Li Chengxian cupped his hands and said, "Xiaoxian, when we caught the chickens, we already left a few strings of money for the farmer. I think it should be enough to make up for the farmer's losses." Li Zishuan's expression became slightly better. Seeing this, Li Chengxian continued, "Moreover, these chickens are already dead. They definitely can't be returned. Xiaoxian, don't be too angry. You guys really want to eat meat that much?" Li Zishuan asked. Yes. Other than Li Chengxian and Qin Huayu, everyone else nodded. "Yes, seeing that you guys left money for the farmer, I won't pursue your responsibility for now." Li Zishuan looked at the chicken feathers all over the ground and knew that Li Chengxian was telling the truth. Chickens couldn't be brought back to life. Now that what was done, there was no point in saying anything more. Of course, he could only choose to forgive them. "You two, move aside." Li Zishuan kicked Sun Zifen and Qing Chumo's legs twice. Hearing that Li Zishuan was letting them go, Qing Chumo and Sun Zifen couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. But then they were inexplicably kicked again. The two of them were immediately depressed and looked at Li Zishuan in confusion. "You two, go and catch me another chicken. Wash it clean while you're at it. Don't forget to leave money for the farmer to buy the chicken." Li Zishuan looked at the two and said lightly, Catch another chicken?" This time, not only Qing Chumo and Sun Zifan were dumbfounded, but the rest of the people were also in a state of confusion. Li Zishuan's words were not light. "What? Hurry up. If you don't go, I'll lock you all in the little black room tomorrow." Li Zishuan glared and said. Qing Chumo and Sun Zifen immediately shivered and hurriedly ran away. Li Zishuan thought for a moment and said, "There's meat but no wine. It's always a bit lacking. You guys continue to roast it here. I'll go back and get a jug of wine. Tonight, I'll accompany you guys and have a good chat." Li Tai's eyes lit up. He couldn't help but give Li Zishuan 32 likes. This move was really too damn considerate. The distance between here and the first courtyard was only 700 to 800 meters. Li Zishuan directly used Qinggong to rush over. In a flash, he had already disappeared from everyone's sight. Hee. Luckily, Yamacho still remembers our old friendship. Otherwise, we're all finished. Li Tai forgot the direction Li Zixuan disappeared in, and said with lingering fear. Qingke, we really were too rash tonight. We can't do this again in the future. Otherwise, little Xian will definitely not let us go again. Li Chengqian sincerely said to Li Tai. The reason why Li Zixuan easily let go of tonight's matter was not only because Sun Zifen stole the chicken but also because Li Zixuan was giving face to Li Chengqian. After all, among the 6 people, Li Chengqian wasn't a student of Yanhuang College. He was a country's heir who was experiencing life at Yanhuang College in the name of a supervisor. If Li Zixuan didn't give face to him, it would make Li Chengqian's face very ugly. I know. I definitely won't. Besides, tomorrow is the holiday. After returning to the prince's residence, I can eat as much meat as I want. I definitely won't steal chicken with Sun Zifen again. Li Tai sat back in his seat and continued to roast the chicken while responding to Li Chengqian's words. During the time when the 2 people were talking, Li Zixuan actually came back so quickly. The speed of his qinggong could be seen at a glance. Where are Sun Zifen and Qing Chumo? Haven't they come back yet? Li Zixuan said as he swept his gaze over the surroundings while carrying a bag. Li Tai was speechless and said, They probably haven't reached the chicken farm yet. How could they come back so quickly? Mountain leader, your qinggong is really convenient for you to travel. TSK, if I had this ability I would directly fly back. As he spoke, Li Tai almost spilled the beans. Fortunately, he stopped in time. Directly flew back to your prince's residence to eat meat, right? Li Zixuan helped the little fatty to say the words that he didn't say. Then he said unhappily, With your personality that can even throw away your life for food, it's already difficult to lose weight. You still want to practice qinggong? Even if you have my qinggong, it's a fool's dream for you to fly back to the prince's residence. It would be strange if the guards of Chang'an City didn't shoot you into a sieve. After insulting the little fatty, Li Zixuan picked up a half-roasted chicken. It was unknown whether it was Qing Chumo's or Sun Zifen's, and continued to roast it. Since these 2 people haven't come back yet, then I'll roast it first. It's been a long time since I roasted a chicken myself. In his previous life, Li Zixuan was a child from the countryside, so his survival skills were naturally not bad. In this life, he had followed spiritual master Ling Su in the mountains to learn from him and traveled around. He had a lot of experience surviving in the wild. Therefore, compared to Li Tai and the others, his roasting skills were naturally outstanding. After a while, the chicken in his hand emitted a rich aroma. Li Zixuan opened the package and began to sprinkle salt, pepper powder, cumin, and other spices on the chicken. Then he roasted the chicken in the fire. Suddenly, the aroma became even stronger. Goo goo! Li Tai greedily breathed in the aroma, and his stomach couldn't help but growl. He looked at the golden and fragrant chicken in Li Zixuan's hand, and then looked at the slightly black chicken in his hand. He thought gloomily in his heart, We're both roasting chickens, why is the difference so big? What the heck? Who roasted this chicken? Why is it so fragrant? It smells better than the roasted chicken in the restaurant. At this time, Qing Chumo and Sun Zifen also came back with a chicken. They smelled a mouth-watering aroma from afar. Qing Chumo cried out strangely. This is my chicken. Waha Yamacho, you're so good to me. You actually roasted the chicken for me. Thank you so much. When Sun Zifen saw the chicken in Li Zixuan's hand, his eyes suddenly lit up, and he quickly said with a bashful face, Get lost. Your chicken is still in Qing Chumo's hands. Go and kill it yourself. Li Zixuan slapped the silly guy's head and said angrily. He had worked so hard to roast it for so long, how could he just give it up? This guy was really thinking too much. Chapter 758. Bright moon, clear spring, roast chicken, fine wine, and teachers and students. Tonight, the wasteland was supposed to be as ordinary as usual, but because of the arrival of Li Zixuan, Qing Chumo, and Sun Zifan, the place became very lively. Little Xian, come, let me give you a toast. I know you've put in a lot of effort for Yanhuang College, but we've always been talking about you in secret. We brothers haven't had a drink together like this in a long time. Qing Chumo's expression changed slightly. He raised a bamboo tube of fine wine and gave a toast to Li Zixuan from afar. Li Zixuan was speechless. After a while, he sighed and said, "All right. Tonight there are only friends and brothers here, no teachers and students. I'll accompany you for a drink or two." Ever since Li Zixuan entered the Imperial College, his relationship with Qing Chumo, Yuqi Baolin, Li Chengqian, and the others had more or less changed. The relationship between friends and brothers had become mixed with the relationship between teachers and students, and there was a sense of distance between them for no reason. Qing Chumo's words just now made him feel a lot of emotions. Although he was a Yamacho of Yanhuang College, if he always acted like a Yamacho, it would be easy to neglect the relationship between brothers and friends. He didn't need to be like Kongingda, who always maintained the attitude of an old pedant to maintain his prestige among the students. He was him. He was only 15 years old. Only others could imitate him. He didn't need to imitate anyone. Haha. Good. To be honest, although I'm not a student of Yanhuang College, I always felt suppressed when I talked to you before. I only feel that kind of feeling when I talk to my father. It's rare to be able to drink and chat with you as a friend today. It's really delightful. Li Chengqian was one of the earliest people Li Zixuan knew. Feeling the subtle change in the atmosphere, Li Chengqian said with a joyful expression, "He Gao Ming, you're wrong. We're not just friends and brothers today. We'll be friends for life." It was just that sometimes, due to their different standpoints, they had no choice but to do business as usual. "Come, let's drink." Li Zixuan opened the wine jug and poured a cup of wine into his bamboo tube. The others did the same. After all, the drunken immortal's degree of intoxication was too high. If this group of people drank too much, there was an 80% chance that they wouldn't be able to get up tomorrow morning. At that time, they would definitely be punished. Hee. Little Xian, since we are good brothers, why don't we exchange chickens? Look, my cock is bigger than yours. Do you want to trade? Everyone couldn't help but cry out in joy as the cool wine entered their stomachs. Li Tai, the clever kid, had his eyes on the tantalizing roast chicken in front of Li Zixuan. He couldn't help but lick his lips and chuckle. How can good wine not be matched with good meat? Li Zixuan was infuriated when he heard this. The little fatty's words were too King ambiguous. What did he mean by "my chicken is bigger than yours"? He was obviously trying to stir up trouble. Scram. I'm not trading. My cock is 10 times bigger than yours. If you want to eat good food, you can do it yourself. Do it yourself, and you'll have plenty to eat and wear. Li Zixuan looked at little fatty and said angrily. Li Tai didn't understand why Li Zixuan was angry, but he also knew that it was impossible to trade chickens. He could only ask for the next best thing. Little Xian, can you share some of the seasonings you brought with you? As the saying goes, there is no harm without comparison. At first, Li Tai thought that his roast chicken was pretty good. However, when Li Zixuan came, he instantly felt that the chicken in his hands was a little hard to swallow. Li Zixuan nodded and threw the bag of seasonings over. Everyone scrambled for it. After a quarter of an hour, with the help of various seasonings, the chicken in everyone's hands emitted waves of fragrance. Compared to before, the taste had obviously improved by more than a level. Woo-woo! Fragrant! So fragrant! I haven't eaten such fragrant roast chicken in a long time. There was no need for Li Zixuan to say anything. Li Tai had already started eating without a care for his image. Sun Zifan, Qing Chumo, Yuqi Baolin, and the others followed closely behind. Looking at the group of people in front of him, who were like reincarnated hungry ghosts, Li Zixuan shook his head and slowly tore off a piece of chicken drumstick and began to slowly taste it. The saltiness was just right and the heat was just right. However, without the chili, it felt a little wrong. However, because cumin was added during the roast process, the overall taste was still very good. After all, there was a saying in modern times: a skewer of roast meat without chili, a skewer of roast meat without taste. A skewer of roast meat without cumin, a skewer of roast meat without a soul. From this, it could be seen how magical cumin was as a seasoning. Woo! I didn't expect that adding some benzoin fennel on the chicken and roasting it in the fire would actually be so delicious. Xiao Xian, how did you think of it? Li Tai lightly bit a piece of chicken drumstick. His eyes lit up and he immediately praised it. The benzoin fennel in his mouth was cumin. Cumin was native to North Africa and West Asia. According to the archaeological findings in Syria, the use of cumin seeds could be traced back to 2000 BC. The ancient Egyptians used cumin as a spice. When the pharaohs were buried, the ancient Egyptians needed to make mummies. Cumin also became a component of the mummy's preservative. Benzoin fennel was an ancient name for cumin in China. From the word benzoin, one could see where and when cumin was introduced to China. Sima Qian recorded in the records of the Grand Historian. In the beginning, the Han envoy came to Rest. The king of Rest ordered 20,000 cavalry to the east border. The east border was thousands of miles away from the capital. Compared to the journey, there were dozens of cities and there were many people. Dewan, Xia, and Anxi are all big countries. They have many strange things and indigenous people. They are quite similar to China, but their soldiers are weak. Therefore, it could be said that cumin was introduced to China from the Silk Road of the Han Dynasty. Yes, I only found out today that adding cumin to the meat can make it so fragrant. Xiao Xian, you are really too talented. As he was in the special training class, Ching Chumo had eaten a lot of meat in the past 2 days, so he was not as hungry as Li Tai. However, after tasting the meat he had personally roasted, Ching Chumo could not help but be surprised. Actually, there is still a kind of seasoning missing. If there is it, this chicken will definitely be more than twice as delicious. Li Zixuan smiled faintly. Li Qingqian's eyes lit up and he said, "What seasoning? I will send someone to search for it later." Li Zixuan shook his head and said, "Our Tang Empire does not have this kind of thing. If you want to get it, you can only go to the far west to find it. There are tens of thousands of miles of sea in between. I hope I can still eat it in my lifetime." The few of them knew that Li Zixuan had a fortuitous encounter when he was young, so they did not ask him how he knew about the seasoning. Ching Chumo rubbed his chin and smiled. What are you afraid of? Our Tang Empire's fleet can now go to the small countries in Nanyang. In the future, we will definitely be able to go to the far west. Xiao Xian, you will definitely be able to eat that kind of seasoning again. Chapter 759. By the way, speaking of the fleet heading south, they should be back soon, right? Qin Huayu suddenly asked beside the bonfire. I heard from my father that the fleet should be back in half a month. Li Chengxian replied. Li Zixuan frowned as he thought of the dream that Meng Wenhao had described. He was a little worried, so he sighed and said, I hope so. This fleet has a lot to do with it. Sigh. What a pity. It's a pity that I didn't go south with the army this time. It's better to use the tens of thousands of troops to show off in Nanyang than to stay in the academy. On the side, Ching Chumo said regretfully with a face full of unwillingness. Li Zixuan sneered, Come on. Ugly ox, you're a landlubber. You won't be able to stand staying on the ship for 2 days. You still want to show off in other countries? I'm afraid you won't be able to. Ching Chumo tore a piece of chicken with his mouth and drank 2 mouthfuls of wine. He then said unhappily, that's not necessarily true. I'm an expert who's about to break through to the Qi transformation realm. Why would I be afraid of a small ship? Maybe I can even make some military achievements this time. Sun Zifen laughed strangely. Chumo, wake up! Stop dreaming! Go away. The adults are talking. You little brat, go away! Ching Chumo angrily scolded, and then suddenly looked at Li Zixuan seriously and said, Little Xian, you also know that I am not the type to study. In the previous entrance exam, I spent a lot of effort to get in. But I can't always stay in the academy. In terms of grades, I can't compare with Qin and Wenhao. So, when the imperial court sends troops to the Turks, I plan to go to the north to make a name for myself. Otherwise, my life will be boring. This guy was usually carefree. Who would have thought that he would be so clear-headed? Maybe he was drunk today, so he said these things that were buried in his heart. Yes, Yanhuang College didn't intend to nurture bookworms in the first place. The academy only nurtured people who were useful to the Tang Empire. No matter what, as long as they had a positive effect, it was fine. Chooks, if you want to go to the front line to protect your country and build your career, the teachers in the academy and your classmates will support you. You will always be a student of Yanhuang College. Li Zixuan knew Ching Chumo's character better than anyone else. Ching Chumo's plan was within Li Zixuan's expectations. Li Zixuan thought about it and nodded in agreement. Thank you. I've long seen through it. Xiaoxian, the Yanhuang College you've made is very different from the Imperial College and the Hongwen School. It's my honor to be classmates with Qin and Bao Lin for a few years. Ching Chumo laughed and poured himself another jar of wine. There's not much wine left in the jar, so I'll drink as much as I can. It'd be a waste not to drink. Yes, Brother Chooks, I'll go with you when the time comes. I can protect you, Yuchi Bao Lin hurriedly said with a simple and honest smile. Ching Chumo's face darkened. Yuchi Bao Lin had reached Qi Transformation Realm half a year ago. There was nothing wrong with him saying that he could protect him. However, Ching Chumo had received 10,000 points of critical damage. Alright. Chumo, you can go to the front line without worry. My classmates and I will help you research and build more advanced and powerful weapons. We can guarantee that you'll win every battle without worrying about your life. You'll also be able to build countless military achievements. Li Tai's goals were clearly different from Ching Chumo's. Of course, the main reason was that his physique and physical fitness limited him from going to the front line. That's right. Chumo, we'll support you from behind. Although Qin Huaiyu was the eldest son of Qin Xiong and the second generation of the empire's military family, he was a scholar who didn't know anything about weapons. Therefore, he was the same type of person as Li Tai. Alright. I believe in you, and I believe in Xiaoshuan's skills. Ching Chumo raised a bamboo jar of wine and offered a toast from afar. He was toasting with his hands, but he wasn't urging them to drink. Then, he laughed loudly. Li Chengqian shook his head. Ching Chumo and the others could have their own dreams and could do whatever they wanted. However, as the empire's heir apparent, he could only obediently follow the emperor and hide under his father's incomparably tall figure to learn about politics and how to govern the country. In the past, when Li Tai competed with him for favor, this was the life he wanted to live. However, now that Li Tai was engrossed in his skills and no longer competed with him for favor, he realized that the position of heir apparent was just so. Now, he was actually a little envious of Li Tai's life. Alright. Then, since you all have things to do, what should I do? Seeing that everyone was chatting enthusiastically, Sun Zifen was a little depressed. Compared to the others, this little joker was a typical example of someone who was neither proficient in academics nor martial arts. At present, he didn't seem to have anything that he could show off. Sun Zifen, it's not that I, old Ching, want to criticize you, but you really embarrassed your father. You only scored 5 points more than me in the entrance exam. Ching Chumo immediately mocked him. F***ck. Isn't 5 points more a lot? You have to know that just because of these 5 points, I'm dozens of places ahead of you. Sun Zifen immediately said stubbornly. Haha. Fine. Only you can do it. But I, old Ching, am better than you. At least I have something that I can show off. Ching Chumo was obviously the type of person who had a cheap mouth. If he didn't attack others, he would feel bad. This blockhead winked at Sun Zifen and said sarcastically. Sun Zifen wanted to refute but found that he couldn't. He suddenly felt a little uncomfortable, and even the roast chicken in his hand became tasteless. Li Zishuan saw this and smiled meaningfully. It's still too early for you to say all this. After all, the academy hasn't started classes yet. In the future, you will have to learn all kinds of courses. You have never heard of many of them, let alone seen them. So, by then, you will really understand what you are good at. No matter what kind of knowledge you are good at, the academy will do its best to give you the space to show off your strengths. Everyone lowered their heads with a thoughtful look on their faces. My talents are born to be useful. Everyone who comes to this world has their own meaning and value. Everyone's potential is unlimited. When the day comes when you have done everything you can do, you will be surprised by yourself. Yanhuang College is a small world that I have created for you. I hope that you can find your own ideals and values in this small world. Before that, don't blindly deny yourself, understand? Li Zishuan said earnestly to everyone. Understood. Thank you, Yamacho. After a long time, Sun Zifen solemnly saluted Li Zishuan and said, Haha. All right. Hurry up and finish your food and drink, then go back. Otherwise, don't blame me if you can't get up tomorrow and get punished. Li Zishuan stood up and said with a smile. Then, he floated away, leaving the 6 thoughtful young men behind. Chapter 760. Drip, drip, drip. At 5 o'clock in the morning, when everyone was still asleep, sporadic raindrops began to fall from the sky and hit the roof, making a slight drip, drip, drip sound. At first, the raindrops were very sparse, and the sound of the rain was also very soft. However, as time passed, the raindrops began to become heavier and denser. A torrential rain poured down, and the loud pitter-patter of raindrops woke many people from their dreams. It's raining? It's really raining? Does that mean we don't have to undergo military training today? Haha. That's great. At this time, it was less than a quarter of an hour before the academy's daily morning exercise time. After so many days of military training, many students had already formed a biological clock, and they would automatically wake up at this time every day. At this moment, they looked out of the window in the direction of the sound and found that it was pouring outside. One by one, they couldn't help but cheer loudly. This sentence of "we don't have to undergo military training today" could be said to be a stone that stirred up 1,000 ripples. More and more people joined in the celebration, and soon, the student dormitory began to become restless. Huh? Why is it so noisy outside? Did the instructor blow the assembly call? In dormitory 001, Sun Zifen drank the least last night. It wasn't that he didn't like to drink, but that he wasn't as cunning as Ching Chumo and the others. When he wanted to drink, there was no wine left. Therefore, he was the first to wake up in the dormitory this morning. The silly little guy rubbed his sleepy eyes and muttered in a low voice. After a moment, he was a little more awake, and he could clearly hear the cheers outside. F***ck. It's raining? We don't have to undergo military training? Ha ha. That's great. We finally don't have to undergo military training today. Sun Zifen opened the dormitory door and saw that it was pouring outside. This fellow immediately started to make a fuss. Oh, Sun Zifen, What the f*** are you yelling about so early in the morning? Ching Chumo, who drank a little too much last night, turned over in bed and muttered in extreme dissatisfaction. Yamacho. In front of the gate of Yanhuang College, Mo Zhong saw Li Zixuan coming out of the rain with an oil-paper umbrella. He hurriedly ran out of the security guard post and bowed. It's already past 5, right? Why don't I see the students coming out for their morning run? Li Zixuan said with a frown as he glanced at the western field. Mo Zhong was stunned. Yamacho, it's raining so heavy today, everyone's is what? Li Zixuan's expression was somewhat displeased. Do you all think that there's no need for military training because it's raining? Who said that? Does the academy est the enemy? Mo Zhong was speechless. Li Zixuan asked, where is Duke Yi? General Qin still hasn't come today. It's probably because of the rain. Li Zixuan paused and ordered, inform Pang Feiji, let him gather the students, today's militaries as usual. It's not winter now, a little rain will only make people feel cool. Generally speaking, people won't catch a cold. Yes, Yamacho. Mo Zhong cupped his hands and accepted the order. Beep beep beep. In the student dormitory, just as all the students were cheering for today's rain, a sharp whistle suddenly sounded from outside the dormitory. In an instant, the noisy dormitory immediately quieted down. The students looked at each other in dismay, all of them thinking that they had misheard. However, the continuous whistling that followed brought them back to reality. Does that mean there's still military training today? Oh my God, are you kidding me? It's raining so heavily, do we still have to go out for military training? Hurry up and wash up. If we're late, we'll probably be punished again. In dormitory 001, Ching Chumo, who was catching up on his sleep, heard the whistle and was instantly filled with grief and indignation. F***ck, do they have to do this? Military training in this kind of weather, it's simply unreasonable. I was planning to sleep in, looks like that's not going to happen, Li Tai said regretfully. After eating a sumptuous supper last night, he wasn't hungry at all, he just wanted to sleep. F***ck, it's raining so heavily, I'll definitely get my clothes wet if I go out. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have washed them last night. What a king waste. Sun Zifen's focus was different from the others. He felt that going out for military training in this kind of weather was equivalent to washing last night's clothes for nothing. Li Zixuan stipulated that the students had to dress neatly during military training. They had to wear camouflage uniforms, but each person only had one set of camouflage uniforms. This directly led to the students having to wash their clothes before going to bed at night, or else they would only be wearing smelly clothes the next day. Alright, hurry up and get up, don't laze around in bed, Li Chengxian said with a frown. Not long after, the open space in front of the dormitory was filled with students. The bean-sized raindrops soaked the students' clothes instantly, but they didn't have the time to care about that at this moment. Beep beep. Instructors of each class, do a head count. Since Qin Xiong wasn't around, Pang Feiji became the head instructor. He blew his bamboo whistle and shouted loudly. Yes. Not long after, a continuous stream of reports sounded in the field. Everyone from Class 1 is here. Everyone from Class 2 is here. 2 people from Class 3 are missing. 1 person from Class 4 is missing. You go and call out the students who are late. In a while, lead them to run 10 laps alone. The rest of the students will start their morning run according to class order. Pang Feiji randomly pointed at a subordinate and instructed. Yes. Students from Class 1 start running. Bang bang bang. In the heavy rain, the students were like dragons in the sea, meandering toward the field. The sound of footsteps and chanting was endless, as if it was going to disperse the dark clouds in the sky. A day of military training began just like that. Changle is here too? Imperial Palace West Court, Li Zheng Hall. Li Er, who had just finished the morning court, came here to visit. He entered the door and smiled in surprise. Greetings, father. Greetings, your majesty. Changle and Zhongsun bowed one after another. Yes, you may rise. Li Er laughed, walked closer, and asked, Guanyin maid, what are you doing? It's not even noon yet. Empress Zhongsun smiled and said, Your Majesty, I heard from Li Xianan at the academy yesterday that meteoric success can treat asthma, so I asked him to send some into the palace every day. This was just sent over, so I called Changle over and planned to have lunch together. Then Empress Zhongsun opened the food box. There was a plate of golden dishes inside. It was the crushed version of meteoric success. Li Er's expression changed when he saw that, and he said, Don't eat this. Don't be fooled by that brat. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.